With your host, Andrew Donaldson. This is Heard Tell.
It's Friday, December the 17th in the year of our Lord 2021, careening to its conclusion in the holiday season. We hope both are going well for you and yours wherever you're listening across the street around the world. I'm Andrew Donaldson. Welcome to Heard Tell Radio. I am just thrilled to have done another week with you folks. Thank you so much for your support as we continue to try to turn down the news cycle noise and get to the information we need to make good decisions and discern our times. And we're going to lead off with a story that definitely needs some discernment. Later in the program, we're going to talk to our friend Adam Bass, a little Massachusetts politics. We're going to, as we go into an election year in 2022, the midterm elections, we're going to look at different states and different places. We want to keep a wide perspective on different things going on in the country, something we always work on here. We do perspective. That's why we talk to folks overseas. We talk to people in different states. We're going to look at the politics inside of different states over the coming years, all part of the perception that we want to try to do and the wider perspective we try to apply here. Also, we're going to have a story about a great American hero who saved Canada that has gone viral lately, and we'll touch on that. But first, let's talk about something that needs to be discussed that frankly I'd rather not discuss because I don't like delving into these things, but it's important for us to make sure that we're dealing in truth and that we understand that how we get our information is the most important part of making sure we have good information to put back out to other people. It's gone viral, and it's the most trending thing for 2 days running now as we enter into Friday. But let's back up for just a second and understand why it's going viral. There's an individual called Dr. Peter McCullough. He is a cardiologist by training, and he has been making a pretty good living for the better part of last year, talking about COVID-19, specifically the vaccines, treatments, things like this. It's a free country. He's free to do so. He is a doctor. That's all legitimate. But he went onto the Joe Rogan podcast. Now, just make sure everybody's on the same page here. You need to understand what the Joe Rogan podcast is. I'm not talking about your opinions of whether you like the podcast or not. That's subjective. You're free to listen to whatever entertainment you want to. The Joe Rogan podcast is the most popular podcast in America, probably in the world. To give you some perspective here on how popular this podcast is, one episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, the name of his podcast, gets almost 3 times the views of all the cable news networks combined in prime time. This is a massive source of information for people. Joe Rogan's contract with Spotify was over $100 million. He is extremely well paid. He's extremely popular. He has mastered the medium. With that has come criticism from different parts about what he does with that platform. We're not going to get into all that because here on Heard Tell, we don't tell you what to think. We just give you information and you figure it out how you deem best fit. So whether you like Joe Rogan or don't like Joe Rogan is really neither here nor there to the information that we want to talk about right now. But you do need to acknowledge, as I do, he's probably the most popular podcaster on the planet, certainly in America. He is a very, very loud voice in our discourse. One thing I have criticized him for is when you have that big of a platform, you should have some responsibilities to go with it. You can't just be the I'm just asking questions guy and platform really questionable stuff under the guise of I'm just asking questions when you're making that much money and you have that big of a platform. That's just my opinion. You're free to disagree with it. But Joe Rogan is an entertaining guy. He's been the UFC commentator, so he's been in the public eye for a long time. He does stand-up comedy. He knows how to entertain, and he has a big platform. So when he brought on Peter McCullough, Dr. Peter McCullough, and did a 3-hour podcast on COVID and the things that Peter McCullough talked about on the podcast have been going viral. They've been getting pushed very, very hard on social media. It's become a big thing. We're not going to do a point-by-point discussion of a 3-hour podcast because we don't have time to do it. And there's a lot of information there to parse through. Again, One thing we're never going to do, we never insult you folks, the audience, because you're smart enough to dig into these things as much or as little as you want to. But I think what would be fair here is we do need to understand who these people are. We just talked about who Joe Rogan is. He's the most popular podcaster in America. He's way bigger audience than any news network or television program has. It's a massive part of our discourse. So what we are going to talk about for a minute here is who Peter McCullough is. We're going to go back in time a little bit. This is from August. And before anybody wants to talk about bias media, this is from our friends over at Hot Air, Taylor Millard, known as a right-leaning publication. It's a Salem publication. So however you filter that in, that's what this is written in. And this is in August, long before he came onto the Joe Rogan podcast. And I'm just going to read from Taylor Millard's piece, somebody I follow on Twitter and respect for the most part. Quote, Dr. Peter McCullough is a medical doctor known for his appearances in media and in front of government panels expressing some skepticism regarding coronavirus treatment, specifically the vaccines. He's claimed, whether it be online, in interviews, or in testimony before state legislatures, to be Baylor University's Medical Center Vice Chair of Internal Medicine and or a professor at Texas A&M University. Again, this is out of Hot Air back in August the 1st from Taylor Millard. Quoting, there's one problem, he's not. Baylor Scott and White Health, aka Baylor University Medical Center, sued McCullough last week, that would have been the last week of July, claiming he had breached a separation agreement reached in February of 2021 by continuously identifying himself as a member of BUMC or the BSSW. It includes appearances on Stu Peters and The Blaze, that's Glenn Beck's network, where the Baylor affiliation was mentioned. The court documents say the hospital has gotten multiple requests about his affiliation, along with social media comments criticizing Baylor's work. The hospital system is worried about losing patients and other business because McCullough remains identified with them. His affiliations, continuing to read from Hot Air and Taylor Millard, his affiliation with Texas A&M University is more unclear. A&M and Baylor Scott and White, that's the Baylor Hospital, are affiliated with each other through the College of Medicine. McCullough's name is no longer listed as a faculty member or an expert on internal medicine, COVID, or cardiology, but it's not known if that ended with his separation agreement with BSW was finalized. Texas A&M did not respond to a request when he left the College of Medicine, but this piece will be updated should they respond. McCullough's attorneys blame mistakes made by the outlets when he makes the appearance. Quote, every single instance referred to by Baylor is something said printed by a third party with no encouragement from Dr. McCullough, Clinton Michael said in a statement to the Dallas Morning News. Dr. McCullough does not and cannot control third parties. End quote. Back to what Taylor Millard's writing. There's truth to this statement, however. McCullough's biography at America Out Loud lists his affiliation with TCU and the UNTHSC, where he is a professor. It's not known when he started teaching there, but he's never been identified as a faculty member in his appearances, including an interview published on July the 25th. Again, this piece is from August the 1st, so this is relevant to the moment, where he again listed at Texas A&M. It is not known how recently he joined the school, but one would think he's correct outlets on their mistake. It's responsible, not to mention more ethically sound, and not that hard to tell somebody, hey, I'm now here. McCullough's attorney suggests politics are as another reason for the suit under the theory Baylor wants to silence the cardiologist from opining on COVID. The truth appears otherwise, though. BSSW's temporary restraining order that they took out against Dr. Peter McCullough request includes specific text noting he's welcome to give his opinion on COVID vaccines and treatments all he wants. Baylor just doesn't want their name attached to it. Quote, this is not a free speech issue or a stifling of dissent. McCullough can offer his opinions to whomever he wishes, but he cannot do so while claiming a current affiliation with the plaintiffs. That would be Baylor. He bargained away that ability in the separation agreement, end quote. What is interesting is the very day the lawsuit was filed, McCullough made sure to tell One American News he was no longer affiliated with Baylor Hospital or Texas A&M. Funny how quick things change when one gets sued. And again, Taylor Millard writing in Hot Air. McCullough shouldn't be silenced for giving his opinion on coronavirus. He's more than welcome to discuss whatever treatments he believes best. He just needs to be honest about his employment situation and his affiliations. Mistakes will happen, but at what point is someone becoming unethical when he or she fails to correct the record? Hopefully, McCullough's newfound clarification on who he's with will not be a flash in the pan, and he'll be more honest in the future. But this does raise questions. What else is McCullough not saying if he's willing to be revealed about when he practices medicine? Why aren't we willing to raise an eyebrow at McCullough's comments now that we know he's not listed where he said he was listed? If we're also willing to show skepticism towards CDC, politicians, bureaucrats, and others about more restrictive COVID measures. That's from Taylor Millard in Hot Air back in August. This is long before he appeared on the recent Joe Rogan Experience podcast that is now going viral, and everybody is citing him for various things that he said and purports in that podcast. Now, again, we're not going to do point-by-point refutations because you're all grown adults. If you want to go listen to the podcast, you can. You have the power in your hand called a smartphone or on your computer to Google and do your own research on the claims he makes and decide for themselves and for yourself. You can decide all these things, but we're going to put out information about who these people are because that's a part of deciding whether their information is valid or not. The fact that he's been doing conferences with questionable people over the summer is also something I factor into whether or not I take his information at face value. So do your own homework. Just because somebody shows up on the most popular podcast in America with credentials, with a title, with an experience means everything he says automatically becomes gospel truth. For example, I tweeted out something very roughly along the lines of what I'm saying here, and I immediately get a tweet with 4 direct questions about can I refute the science and the things that he's saying. If you can tweet at me 4 questions immediately, you should be able to ask 2 or 3 of the source material to start with before you go and write out to try to make it a new thing for you. This goes to what we talk about on this show a lot, what we call avataring. Are you doing your own homework and your own research and your own information? Are you making sure you're critical? I agree with Taylor Millard. We should be critical of not only Peter McCullough, but the CDC and the government and everybody else. Critical thinking is base level adulting. You should be critical of everything. Get information and then make a good decision. That's what we're advocating for here. But if you're just avataring because you like the Joe Rogan podcast, or you like Joe Rogan, or you like Peter McCullough, or probably more specifically, Peter McCullough might tell you some things that you want to hear that you don't think other people are saying, doesn't necessarily make them true. This is why we're talking about avataring. You're just latching onto Peter McCullough or a Joe Rogan or whoever else and taking whatever they say to be true without doing your homework on it. Some of what he says might be true. Some of it may not be. You need to do your own homework on it, and don't just smash send and retweet and pile on with everybody else until you take in the full measure of people. So speaking only for myself, if you're being iffy and dodgy about your credentials, I'm going to have even more questions about the information you're bringing. I know folks get all tied up in the conspiracy theories. They're fun. And everybody's out to get me is a great coverall for things like I wasn't being forthcoming with my credentials. So if you want to attack me for not taking Peter McCullough and the Joe Rogan podcast at face value, that's fine. I'm just telling you up front, just because you're on the most popular podcast in America isn't going to be enough for me to say your information is good. Same as just because you're the president of the United States doesn't mean your information's good. Same as just because I host the Herd Tell Radio means my information's good. You need to fact check me. You need to fact check the president. You need to fact check the CDC, and you sure need to make sure you're fact checking Joe Rogan's and Peter McCullough and see if they're giving you good information or not. Don't be a part of the herd. Be an individual first. Individual responsibility is something that'll keep you out of a lot of trouble here. Your individual responsibility with all this COVID information is to get the best information you can from a wide variety of sources and not just avatar the most popular voice in podcasting. We have more Herd Tell Radio coming up right after this. Welcome back to Herd Tell Radio. I'm Andrew Donaldson. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. We hope you are subscribed on whatever platform you're listening, whether this is on Facebook, YouTube, any of the podcasting platforms. If you can make sure you subscribe, you'll get both Heard Tell Radio on weekdays and the Heard Tell podcast, where we do a little bit deep diving with. I want to talk about for just a second. You've probably heard tell that there's bad people on social media and bad people in news media and very bad people that use both of those things for their own ends. This is not shocking. Human behavior is undefeated, as we often talk about here. And part of that human behavior is that bad people do bad things. And a lot of times, bad people show up to do bad things, saying things to try to con good people into going along with them. I don't like to just name their names because there's a certain subset of people in our current discourse who it's basically nailing jello to the wall. You can't really engage them because any engagement at all, you're just giving them more bandwidth. They're not good faith arguers. They're not good faith discussions. And the more attention you give them, they just use that to spread their wickedness even further. They feed off that stuff. At the same time, you want to be able to denounce them. So what do we do with people like this? I go back to one of the greatest presidential speeches ever given, one of my favorite speeches ever given. And though as a man and as a president, he had a lot of lacking failures and did some horrific things policy-wise, FDR's D-Day speech is something that I go back to over and over again. First of all, can you imagine if the president of the United States got on TV and streaming the way Roosevelt got on radio and led the nation in prayer? People's heads would explode. They'd probably never recover from it. But as the D-Day operations were going on and the way the time lapse worked, and because of security and the time zone difference and the technology of the day, the D-Day landings were well in progress when he announced that it was going on. The end of his D-Day prayer speech, which I think is one of the great moments in American rhetoric ever. Most people call it the Mighty Endeavor speech. And that part of it's famous, but the end of that speech deals with something very profound and very American. And I just want to read it to you. And again, this is in the context of a prayer. This is from 1944. So keep that context in mind, but hear the words that are involved here. Lead us to the saving of our country. This is FDR. And with our sister nations into a world of unity that will spell a sure peace and a peace invulnerable to the schemings of unworthy men, and a peace that will let all of men live in freedom, reaping the just rewards of their honest toil. That's the ending to the D-Day prayer, A Mighty Endeavor, the FDR speech. But that the schemings of unworthy men is something I've really latched on to as I've started writing and as I've started working through things in my advocacy and in my commentary. These are words that have really stuck with me as I deal with people that are just obviously bad faith actors, people who just want to cause trouble, people who just want to spread their wickedness, and often use buzzwords, ideology, and political parties as cover for their wickedness. They're scheming of unworthy men. They're unworthy schemers because they're not just men, they're other people as well. Here's how you need to address them, and here's how we need to address them in our media. We need to understand that just because somebody uses a buzzword, that doesn't mean that's what they are. Their actions speak louder than their words. Are they using a political party as coverage for wickedness? Are they using an ideology or a term like conservative or liberal or progressive or libertarian as cover for wickedness? Are they trying to entice you with religious speak from a particular religion like Christianity or Judaism or whatever the case may be, to entice you into what their real goal is, which is bad intentions for a whole lot of people that are not like them? The goal of all of us should be to have an America where the most people possible have the most amount of freedom possible. And these people are not interested in that. They're interested in dominating. They're interested in ruling. They're interested in making everybody same just like them. They will use things like political ideologies. They will use things like religion. They will use things like patriotism and your love of your own country towards those ends. They will say that the only real America is people that agree with them, or the only true believers are the ones that agree with them, or the only people who are worthy of our time are people like them. Listen to what they're telling you and believe them, because if they really just want everybody to be like them, what they're really telling you is they want to be tyrannical powers so that they can make everybody be like them. That's not the America we all love and need. That's not the way almost any organized religion that is not a cult is set up to be. There's always freedoms of choices. There's always an ability for the person to make a mindset and a change and to decide what to do. And anything, whether it's a government or an ideology or a religion, that starts with the individual having to behold to evil, wicked people who are unworthy schemers, it's bad. It's always bad. We could talk theology all day long on, the will of man and all this sort of things. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. In the political and cultural realm, people want to dominate. They want to destroy. They want to make things the same, usually exactly how they see things. But that is not compatible with America. America is letting people have the freedom to be what they want to be within the confines of the law. And America is letting people have the ability to be wrong. So if you disagree with them, understand they have a right to be wrong as far as you're concerned. They have a right to be wrong, and they have a right to think you're wrong. And just because we think somebody's wrong is not enough reason to try to get the government or an entity or an institution involved to try to make them think differently. It's the arena of ideas. It's dirty, it's messy, it's fighting, it's not easy. But the arena of ideas is a lot better than the jail cell of bad ideology and unworthy schemers. We must be very vigilant with people who tickle our ears with words and buzzwords and things that we think are good, like family values, like religion, like belief, like patriotism. But they're tickling your ears with that so that they can do some really wicked stuff against other people that are not like them. And there's nothing good about that. There's nothing American about that. There's nothing Christian about that in every known sense of the word. And there's nothing good that's going to come out of it for our country. This, the greatest experiment in the history of mankind into a free people self-governing, cannot sustain us killing and destroying each other's value. We must respect everybody. We can fight our corners hard, but in the end, we need to remember we're Americans. And that will start and go a long way if we can put aside the unworthy schemers, call them out for what they are, and shout them down in the public sphere. More Heard Tell right after this. And I get to talk to one of my buddies, sometime Ordinary Times contributor and a local journalist from the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts, our friend Adam Bass. How are you, sir?
Thank you for having me on the show, Andrew. Great to be here. Great to talk to you about what's going on in my Commonwealth for all you people down West Virginia or across the world.
Yeah, and we appreciate you joining us on Heard Tell Radio. It's so interesting because Charlie Baker has announced that he is not going to seek another term as governor. Massachusetts, it has the reputation of being a deep blue state. Of course, everybody thinks about the Kennedys. Elizabeth Warren, of course, very progressive, current sitting senator there. But with the exception of a Devil Patrick administration, the guy before this was Mitt Romney. And now you have Charlie. But what is it about Massachusetts and moderate Republican governors? Because it seems counter to their reputation, but it's kind of commonplace.
Well, Massachusetts, you got to remember, it used to be one of the big stomping grounds of the original Republican Party, home to many, many traditional Republican governors, home to Charles Sumner, the one who basically called out slavery over and over again on the Senate floor and was beaten to death, or not to death, beaten to near death with a cane by a representative from South Carolina. And, Massachusetts, it likes its moderate Republicans, as well as the rest of New England. You got Phil Scott, couple other governors. You could argue for many that they say Christopher Sununu is a moderate Republican, though, that's a bit fluid in terms of how you define it. But it's very much a New England thing. The idea is that Charlie Baker, I think, has sort of transcended being a Republican and just sort of runs as, Charlie Baker. They never want to stay too much to the right, otherwise they get into a lot of trouble. And yeah, I think it presents a sort of a balance that people, voters do like, as they do like split government in some way.
Yeah, and this is a story with Charlie Baker in Massachusetts that, like almost everything in politics now, when it comes to Democratic and Republican, he has a little bit of a Trump problem with his own Republican Party in Massachusetts, and that is part of what's facilitating him not seeking another term. Explain that to folks, because it seems it seems backwards, but you have a Republican Party that's going to move more to the right, even though it's more of a progressive left blue state.
Yeah, this is sort of the name of the game with many Republican parties across America. They see nationalization as the big ticket for them, and the big name in Republican politics is one Donald J. Trump. So you have Jim Lyons, the chair of the party, who is very much right leaning and very much trying to embrace Trump style Republican politics as their ticket. The base, which you can be found sort of in what I like to call the Great Red Blob of Worcester County. Worcester County is the middle of Massachusetts, and sort of bits and pieces of Plymouth County. They're a little more Trump Republicans, but Charlie Baker's base was mostly Democrats and independents, because again, he sort of transcended from being Republican Governor Charlie Baker to just Governor Charlie Baker. And, I think that's just sort of the case with many Republicans across the country. Everything, and this is also the truth with Democrats. Everything's becoming more nationalized. Everything is becoming sort of a trickle-down thing on the top of the ballot, and that's the way to success. Whether that gives them success is another thing entirely. Obviously, the elections need to play out. Specifically the midterm elections. I don't like picking up special elections because they kind of don't tell us all that much, but a small piece of the puzzle. So you have to watch out for what's going to happen in 22. See if that Trumpism goes far for Republicans. I think it will go far in deep red states, not so much in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yeah, and you make a great point, because with nationalization, we talk, everybody has their favorite congressperson to hate on or love now. You used to never care about anybody's congressperson except your own. That's part of the nationalization. And then we have examples like Charlie Baker being governor. Of course, Joe Manchin's getting a lot of attention. Christine Sinema on the Democratic side, where they're more from more conservative areas, even though they're still of their party. I think you make a great point with the nationalization, and I think here in Charlie Baker, you have who, by some metrics, may be the most popular governor in America. He's often flirting with the 70s in approval rating, and he can't run for re-election with his own party in his own state.
I'm going to challenge you on that, though, because here's the thing. Charlie Baker, yes, that is a component of it, but you also have to understand 8 years is a long time to run for governor. This is sort of a tradition in Massachusetts that they don't really run for 3 terms. There have been governors that have had 3 terms. Michael Dukakis is probably the most well-known, but they weren't consecutive. So that is just one piece of the puzzle. The other piece is that there have been reports that, he's talked to his family. His family just kind of wants him to move on. His decision, it was reported, I think, in Politico or Boston Globe, that, it was a decision made by his family and him. It wasn't because of the party. I think he would have won if he ran again by a closer margin than 2018, because Democrats, I don't think, tried. Or no, it was reported that they didn't really have much of an effort in 2018, especially if Maura Healey runs at some point. That's another conversation. But yeah, I think he would win even with a Republican Party that doesn't really like him as much compared to other Republicans across the country.
I stand corrected. Then this plays into one of the reasons why the national media has been paying a little bit of attention to Charlie Baker, though, is he has come to certain people, especially non-Trump or never Trump Republicans. He's kind of become the unicorn flavor of the day as a Republican that's more moderate. But you're saying you think he's just done with politics, that has nothing to do with it, and they're just putting that on him. He's ready to just walk off for at least the near future.
I mean, it's in some ways, I think it's coping. Charlie Baker has never had any or from what we've reported and what reporters have reported, Charlie Baker is not a man of national aspirations. Obviously there was that one time where he endorsed Susan Collins, but that was more of, a cordial thing. They're good friends. Charlie Baker would not win, at least right now, a Republican primary or maybe even national election. I think he would. There are some scenarios that he would win, but right now, in a very educationally polarized and just socially polarized country, I don't think that's possible. Now, I do think at some point in our lifetimes, the polarization will decrease, and hey, Charlie Baker theoretically could win, but I think he's done.
You think he's done at least for the near future? So
for the near future, I mean, he's going to be.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, let's say it goes, the polarization decreases in 10 years, right? I'm 30. and Charlie Baker's going to be in his 70s. I don't think the American people are going to be wanting another 70-year-old, 80-year-old president out of fear that, they could unfortunately pass away. Stability is one of the big things that Americans love. And age could come as a big factor. Now, I know that obviously the life expectancy is rising in this country still. If you're president, you're going to get one of the best health cares in the world. I mean, but at the same time, that's going to be a factor if he decides to run.
Yeah, talking to Adam Bass, our friend in Massachusetts. Just to wrap this up a little bit, when you have a dominant political figure like Charlie Baker, who was, probably untouchable electorally, at least, or it would be tough to beat him, this is going to open it up. So, what's next for Massachusetts politics, especially for the state house?
Well, for the state house lower chambers, not much is going to change. Maybe Democrats pick up one or two more House seats. They already have 130, so they have a supermajority. Democrats don't control control all but three seats in the Senate. There's often a joke that you can fill a sedan with all the Republicans in the Massachusetts State House, but for the main uh, list. For Democrats, obviously, it's going to come down to whether Maura Healey or Marty Walsh, or when they will announce. Maura Healey is the Attorney General of Massachusetts, has signaled that she is going to run. Marty Walsh is the current Labor Secretary for Joe Biden, as well as the former mayor of Boston. He has made hints that he could run. So, obviously, it's going to be a will they, won't they sort of scenario in the couple of weeks. My money on who would win that primary would be Maura Healey, and mainly because, and if I may bring up something here. This is a book called Don't Blame Us by Lily Geismer, and it talks about how Massachusetts is now a very suburban-heavy political state or commonwealth, and that's the way that they gain power. It's no longer in like gateway cities anymore. So because of that, I think Maura Healey has the advantage. And finally, the one thing I want to talk about for Democrats is the lieutenant governor's seat. Now, it's becoming a very crowded field, and, on one hand, obviously, politicos and journalists like to joke, oh my god, it's becoming crowded, but at the same time, when are you going to get a better chance to make a good amount of money as lieutenant governor when Charlie Baker isn't running? And as for Republicans, Jeff Deal is currently, right now, the number one contender for the nomination. There have been rumors that a former mayor of Taunton is going to run, a business owner is going to run. I can't name them off the top of my head, I apologize. But, I still have, Jeff Deal as the number one Republican running right now due to the fact that just getting in early and name recognition.
Deal runs for governor, regardless of which the Democrat is. Does he get in single digits?
I think he gets low double digits, maybe the 20s or the 30s on a good day. You got to remember, the national environment's going to play a part too. I do think that Democrats will probably win this race, but if Joe Biden's approval rating is really lousy, or if Democrats are just not having a good day, I think it could be a moderately close race, and I put quotation marks around moderately. Maybe a 20-point difference instead of like a complete blowout. If Joe Biden's approval rating just somehow gets back up and Democrats are maybe 3 points ahead on the generic ballot, I think you'll see a landslide in Massachusetts.
Yeah. He's our man in Massachusetts in the never boring world of Commonwealth politics up there. Adam Bass, appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you, sir. Let folks know where they can find you on Twitter and elsewhere for your great information that you bring us.
Yeah, so I am at Adam Bass of Mass on Twitter.com. I usually am now retweeting stuff for my job at the Daily Item in Lynn. Currently writing stuff there. Very happy there. Yeah, and I also sometimes I do a podcast called The God Cabin, where myself, Jesse Hahn, Logan Rabe, and Jack Leary. You can find them at HJesse, at Logan ZT, and at Jack Leary 23. We talk about Massachusetts politics, have some guests on, have some journalists on. We sort of talk about what makes Massachusetts tick. I love this Commonwealth. I think it's very underrated in terms of, everyone's talking about swing states or even just the big big blue states like California and New York because they have that big cities. But you gotta remember, Massachusetts kind of was one of the big players in starting this whole country. There was the Boston Tea Party. There were the thinkers that came from here. It's one of the big stomping grounds of the old Republican Party and the new Democratic Party. So, as we often say, there's a Massachusetts connection.
Yeah, and we just learned in Virginia, which 4 months ago everybody thought was going to be blue for a generation. You just never can tell, and we love to cover these states because we do get too national. And on Herd Tell, we love to touch on these states. So we'll keep coming back to you for Massachusetts stuff. Thanks, you buddy. Appreciate
Will
you.
do. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, take care.
Welcome back. I'm Andrew Donaldson, and you're listening to Herd Tell Radio. This is the weekday component. Every weekday, if you're a subscriber or watch on the streaming services on the Big Talker, you get Herd Tell Radio. We also have the Herd Tell podcast, 32 episodes going strong, where we do deep dives with knowledgeable guests and continue the same principles we do on Herd Tell Radio of turning down the news cycle noise and getting to the information that matters. And nothing in the news cycle has been louder over the last year than the debate over CRT, critical race theory. Our friends over at the Narratives Project have a report out about how we've discussed it over the past year that it's been in the news, how we're talking to each other about it, the misperceptions, the confidence, the nomenclature, and just how everybody's mostly talking past each other and at each other instead of with each other on this subject. So our friend Sophia Sedergren Booker of the Narratives Project, who helped author this in-depth report, joined us on the podcast to talk a little bit about CRT, not debate CRT itself, but to break down how we're talking about it so that we can maybe have a little bit better understanding. That clip right now. You said, and I'll quote it to you. Because CRT touches on our deepest beliefs about what America stands for and the roles of education, bridging the gap between left and right goes deeper than just agreeing upon or enforcing a standard definition. We've already talked about there's no really such thing as neutral here. We've talked about how people come at this. Is part of the breakdown here that we're trying to define something that we're just naturally going to have different definitions of? And maybe we shouldn't even bother with that piece of it and just say like, okay, you define it differently than me, but let's just acknowledge that and then try to talk about it. Because if you start down the definition path, that's almost like an absolute truth where like, well, I can't budge on this piece of it. Is that what you're finding after you did all this studying and all this research on the media narratives?
Yeah, I think that is a central aspect of our findings. And that's that a lot of people approach this as if it is a neutral topic that they have some distance to. We perceive it as though we can define this without any bias. And what we're finding is that that is not the case. We're all introducing bias into our definition. And I think in order to have good conversations about it, as you stated, we have to first acknowledge, okay, your definition of this is X, and my definition of this is Y. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that my definition is correct and yours is incorrect or vice versa. It just means that because we are two different people with different experiences and different values, we have defined this differently. And from that, it's a lot easier to have conversations about how we feel about it and why we think it's important or not important to introduce CRT in education, because then we know where the other person is standing. Because if we're approaching the conversation thinking, as many people on the left do, that CRT is a way to recognize and address racism in society, if someone is opposed to it, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that they're racist. Likewise, if you're coming from the right and have your definition that CRT ascribes racism to parts of American society, whether or not it exists, it's easy to conclude as someone who is for CRT is trying to make us more racist or trying to make people feel bad about being white. And when we look at it from those two distinct positions, it's easier to understand why people can either be so favorable towards CRT or so against it without passing judgment on them as people.
The entire Hertel podcast was Sophia Sedegren Booker from the Narratives Project on CRT, Critical Race Theory, and how it is covered in the media is available wherever you get the podcast or the video portion of Hertel. If you're subscribed to the Hertel Radio, you're already going to get it. We hope you'll enjoy it. We hope you'll discuss it. We hope you'll share it. More Hertel Radio right after this.
Now let me see you go off like a bomb. Now let me see you go off like a bomb.
Welcome back to Hertel Radio. I'm Andrew Donaldson. Thank you so much for staying with us as we end out the week. A great week here at the Hertel Radio that we really appreciate your support, by the way. It's done better than we thought it would, and we appreciate you listening. A little lighter note to end the week and to end this particular show. Let's talk a little bit of a story about a time back in the 1950s where Canada almost had themselves a nuclear disaster. On December the 12th, 1952, the Chalk River NRX nuclear reactor suffered a partial meltdown. I'm reading this from a Newsweek article. The incident resulted in hundreds of thousands of gallons of radioactive water flooding the core and causing major damage to the reactor. Let's pause right there. We all know what happened with Chernobyl. If you haven't watched the HBO miniseries on Chernobyl, I highly recommend it. It is excellent, gripping, at times hard to watch. It is well acted, and it shows you how catastrophic that was, and perhaps even more frightening, how much more catastrophic it would be if a whole lot of people didn't sacrifice a whole lot of stuff to make it not as bad as it could have been. So back to 1952, Canada. As reported by nuclearenergy.net, the major failure, along with, quote, several poor decisions by facility operators, end quote, resulted in a nuclear fission chain reaction that caused the power level to rise exponentially. This is similar to what happened at Chernobyl. The power rise suddenly spiked and it melted down. Anyway, back to Canada in the 50s. At the time, the NRX reactor operated at around 300 megawatts. On December the 12th, this is 1952, workers at the plant were preparing for a reactor physics experiment at low power. Also something that happened in Chernobyl some 30 years later, incidentally. However, a defect in the NRX shutoff rod mechanism combined with human errors caused a temporary loss of control over reactor power, ultimately causing it to surge to between 60 and 90 megawatts. The energy load would normally not have been a problem, but several experimental fuel rods that were at the moment receiving inadequate cooling for high power operation ruptured and melted. The FAQ section of the Canadian Deuterium Uranium Reactor website states, thousands of nuclear fission particles were released into the atmosphere. The radioactive water also ended up in the reactor building's basement before being pumped out into the shallow ditches near the Ottawa River. The U.S. was then called in to help with the cleanup site. So who did the U.S. send up there? Well, they found a young trained nuclear engineer in the Navy who had been somewhat of the protege of Admiral Hyman Rickover, who was the father of the nuclear naval program and of the atomic submarine Seawolf, and was asked to send his best to help clean up. According to the Historical Society of Ottawa, part of the cleanup plan, the reactor had to be shut down, disassembled, and replaced, with the team also needing to clean any spilled radioactive material. The intensity of the radiation meant that this team and each member of the team could only spend about 90 seconds at the core location before the operation, which involved being lowered into the core. You think your job was rough. An exact replica of the reactor was built on a nearby tennis court where the leader of this group of men, Navy personnel, practiced cleaning and repairing it. They described it this way, quote, we all went out on this tennis court and we had an exact duplicate of the reactor on the tennis court, and we would run out there with our wrenches and we'd check off so many bolts and nuts and they'd put them back on. And finally, when we went down in the reactor itself, which was extremely radioactive, then we would dash in there as quickly as we could and take off as many bolts as we could, the same bolts we had just been practicing on. Each time our men managed to remove a bolt or fitting from the core, the equivalent piece was removed on the mock-up. Continuing, they said, when a Canadian heavy water nuclear plant at Chalk River was destroyed by the accident in 1952 or by a reactor meltdown and the subsequent hydrogen explosion, the crew were volunteered by Rickover to assist with the disassembly so it could be replaced. The reactor core was below ground level and surrounded by intense radioactivity, even with protective clothing. Each of us would absorb the maximum permissible dose with just 90 seconds of exposure, so we had to make optimum use of the limited time. The limit on radiation absorption in the early 50s was approximately 1,000 times higher than it is 60 years later because they didn't know what we know now. The rebuilt NRX reactor was back in service within 2 years of the meltdown before it was permanently shut down in 1993. The young naval lieutenant who saved Canada, a young Jimmy Carter, who would later become president of the United States. And while he is not known to have been the best president we ever had by a long shot, he is the only one who can claim to have had saved Canada nearly single-handedly with his leadership skills. Jimmy Carter, it might be noted, is the only president to date who is submarine qualified on nuclear submarines, and they don't give those dolphins out to just anybody. As far as the radiation exposure, Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind are still alive and doing just fine well into their 90s, and God bless them. That'll do it for Heard Tell today. Thank you so much for your support. Whatever platform you're watching and or listening on, please leave a rating and a comment. Let folks know that our little program's worth checking out. And if you really want to do us a solid, put it out on your social media. The links are all there, no matter what platform you're on: YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. If you're streaming on the Big Talker or the Big Talker's Facebook page, stick us on your social media. Let other people know to find out about us, because I think more folks out there are going to want to get a little bit of news and political discussion with the noise turned down. None of the caterwauling, just information, just folks talking. It's what we'll keep trying to do as long as you keep listening, and we greatly appreciate you. Remember, it only costs you a click, 2 if you share it, and we sure appreciate it. So wherever you and yours are across the street or around the world, we hope you're well. We hope you're well fed, and we'll see you on Monday for Heard Tell Radio.
All the music on Heard Tell is provided under a Creative Content license from monstercat.com.
Booker of the Narratives Project, who helped author this in-depth report, joined us on the podcast to talk a little bit about CRT. Not debate CRT itself, but to break down how we're talking about it so that we can maybe have a little bit better understanding. That clip right now. When you said, and I'll quote it to you, because CRT touches on our deepest beliefs about what America stands for and the roles of education, bridging the gap between left and right goes deeper than just agreeing upon or enforcing a standard definition. We've already talked about there's no really such thing as neutral here. We've talked about how people come at this. Is part of the breakdown here that we're trying to define something that we're just naturally going to have different definitions of, and maybe we shouldn't even bother with that piece of it and just say, like, okay, you define it differently than me, but let's just acknowledge that and then try to talk about it. Because if you start down the definition path, that's almost like an absolute truth where, like, well, I can't budge on this piece of it. Is that what you're finding after you did all this studying and all this research on the media narratives?
Yeah, I think that is a central aspect of our findings, and that's that a lot of people approach this as if it is a neutral topic that they have some distance to. We perceive it as though we can define this without any bias. And what we're finding is that that is not the case. We're all introducing bias into our definition. And I think in order to have good conversations about it, as you stated, we have to first acknowledge, okay, your definition of this is X, and my definition of this is Y. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that my definition is correct and yours is incorrect, or vice versa. It just means that because we are two different people with different experiences and different values, we have defined this differently. And from that, it's a lot easier to have conversations about how we feel about it and why we think it's important or not important to introduce CRT in education, because then we know where the other person is standing. Because if we're approaching the conversation thinking, as many people on the left do, that CRT is a way to recognize and address racism in society. If someone is opposed to it, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that they're racist. Likewise, if you're coming from the right and have your definition that CRT ascribes racism to parts of American society, whether or not it exists, it's easy to conclude as someone who is for CRT is trying to make us more racist or trying to make people feel bad about being white. And when we look at it from those two distinct positions, it's easier to understand why people can either be so favorable towards CRT or so against it without passing judgment on them as people.
The entire Heard Tell podcast was Sophia Sedegren Booker from the Narratives Project on CRT, critical race theory, and how it is covered in the media is available wherever you get the podcast or the video portion of Heard Tell. If you're subscribed to the Heard Tell radio, you're already going to get it. We hope you'll enjoy it. We hope you'll discuss it. We hope you'll share it. More Heard Tell radio right after this.
Now let me see you go off like a bomb. Now let me see you go off like a bomb.
Welcome back to Heard Tell Radio. I'm Andrew Donaldson. Thank you so much for staying with us as we end out the week. A great week here at the Heard Tell Radio that we really appreciate your support, by the way. It's done better than we thought it would, and we appreciate you listening. A little lighter note to end the week and to end this particular show. Let's talk a little bit of a story about a time back in the 1950s where Canada almost had themselves a nuclear disaster. On December the 12th, 1952, the Chalk River NRX nuclear reactor suffered a partial meltdown. I'm reading this from a Newsweek article. The incident resulted in hundreds of thousands of gallons of radioactive water flooding the core and causing major damage to the reactor. Let's pause right there. We all know what happened with Chernobyl. If you haven't watched the HBO miniseries on Chernobyl, I highly recommend it. It is excellent, gripping, at times hard to watch. It is well acted, and it shows you how catastrophic that was, and perhaps even more frightening, how much more catastrophic it would be if a whole lot of people didn't sacrifice a whole lot of stuff to make it not as bad as it could have been. So back to 1952 Canada. As reported by nuclearenergy.net, the major failure, along with, quote, several poor decisions by facility operators, end quote, resulted in a nuclear fission chain reaction that caused the power level to rise exponentially. This is similar to what happened at Chernobyl. The power rise suddenly spiked and it melted down. Anyway, back to Canada in the 50s. At the time, the NRX reactor operated at around 300 megawatts. On December the 12th, this is 1952, workers at the plant were preparing for a reactor physics experiment at low power. Also something that happened in Chernobyl some 30 years later, incidentally. However, a defect in the NRX shutoff rod mechanism combined with human errors caused a temporary loss of control over reactor power, ultimately causing it to surge to between 60 and 90 megawatts. The energy load would normally not have been a problem, but several experimental fuel rods that were at the moment receiving inadequate cooling for high power operation ruptured and melted. The FAQ section of the Canadian Deuterium Uranium Reactor website states, thousands of nuclear fission particles were released into the atmosphere. Then the radioactive water also ended up in the reactor building's basement before being pumped out into the shallow ditches near the Ottawa River. The U.S. was then called in to help with the cleanup site. So who did the U.S. send up there? Well, they found a young trained nuclear engineer in the Navy who had been somewhat of the protege of Admiral Hyman Rickover, who was the father of the nuclear naval program and of the atomic submarine Seawolf, and was asked to send his best to help clean up. According to the Historical Society of Ottawa, part of the cleanup plan, the reactor had to be shut down, disassembled, and replaced, with the team also needing to clean any spilled radioactive material. The intensity of the radiation meant that this team and each member of the team could only spend about 90 seconds at the core location before the operation, which involved being lowered into the core. You think your job was rough. An exact replica of the reactor was built on a nearby tennis court where the leader of this group of men, Navy personnel, practiced cleaning and repairing it. They described it this way, quote, "We all went out on this tennis court and we had an exact duplicate of the reactor on the tennis court, and we would run out there with our wrenches and we'd check off so many bolts and nuts and they'd put them back on. And finally, when we went down in the reactor itself, which was extremely radioactive, then we would dash in there as quickly as we could and take off as many bolts as we could, the same bolts we had just been practicing on. Each time our men managed to remove a bolt or fitting from the core, the equivalent piece was removed on the mock-up." Continuing, they said, when a Canadian heavy water nuclear plant at Chalk River was destroyed by the accident in 1952 or by a reactor meltdown and the subsequent hydrogen explosion, the crew were volunteered by Rickover to assist with the disassembly so it could be replaced. The reactor core was below ground level and surrounded by intense radioactivity, even with protective clothing. Each of us would absorb the maximum permissible dose with just 90 seconds of exposure, so we had to make optimum use of the limited time. The limit on radiation absorption in the early 50s was approximately 1,000 times higher than it is 60 years later because they didn't know what we know now. The rebuilt NRX reactor was back in service within 2 years of the meltdown before it was permanently shut down in 1993. The young naval lieutenant who saved Canada, a young Jimmy Carter, who would later become president of the United States. And while he is not known to have been the best president we ever had by a long shot, he is the only one who can claim to have had saved Canada nearly single-handedly with his leadership skills. Jimmy Carter, it might be noted, is the only president to date who is submarine qualified on nuclear submarines, and they don't give those dolphins out to just anybody. As far as the radiation exposure, Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind are still alive and doing just fine well into their 90s, and God bless them. That'll do it for Heard Tell today. Thank you so much for your support. Whatever platform you're watching and or listening on, please leave a rating and a comment. Let folks know that our little program's worth checking out. And if you really want to do us a solid, put it out on your social media. The links are all there no matter what platform you're on, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. If you're streaming on the Big Talker or the Big Talker's Facebook page, stick us on your social media. Let other people know to find out about us, because I think more folks out there are going to want to get a little bit of news and political discussion with the noise turned down. None of the caterwauling, just information, just folks talking. It's what we'll keep trying to do as long as you keep listening, and we greatly appreciate you. Remember, it only costs you a click, 2 if you share it, and we sure appreciate it. So wherever you and yours are across the street or around the world, we hope you're well, we hope you're well fed, and we'll see you on Monday for Heard Tell Radio.
All the music on Heard Tell is provided under a Creative Content license from MonsterCat.com.
Somos la máquina.
Do you or someone you love suffer from back pain, poor circulation, or struggle to get a good night's sleep? Do you just need help getting into or out of your chair? US Med Express is Wilmington's leading supplier of Golden Technology lift and sleep chairs, carrying a variety of models in our showroom at 1733 Dawson Street. Our chairs lead the industry in power lift recliner features and advances in technology. Our chairs are FDA certified as medical devices, which means it's 100% tax deductible, and helps with a number of medical conditions, including arthritis, poor circulation, and sleep apnea. Give us a call today at 910-500-6162 or stop by and experience our chairs for yourself at 1733 Dawson Street. That's 910-500-6162. 1733 Dawson Street in Wilmington. US Med Express.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A Brunswick County man is charged with extortion after making threats to the Ocean Isle Beach Police Chief and the Brunswick County Sheriff. According to warrants, John Nathan Tabor allegedly threatened 2 men to give him immunity or he would release false information. The threats reportedly happened to Ocean Isle Beach Police Chief Ken Bellamy from November 10th through Tuesday. The warrant also says Brunswick County Sheriff John Ingram was also threatened on Tuesday. Tabor has been arrested and is being held in the Brunswick County Jail. The Temple of Israel is one of the most recognizable buildings in downtown Wilmington, and it needs your help. The synagogue has stood for a century and a half and needs $500,000 for its restoration. The building needs repairs due to water damage and deterioration. The temple is the oldest Jewish house of worship in continuous use in the state, but it has been closed for worship and other events since last year. Fundraising began 2 months ago. So far, $200,000 have been donated or pledged towards the $500,000 goal. According to a new report, North Carolina is among 10 states in the country seeing the highest jump in rental rates. Rent.com is reporting the average rent for one bedroom in North Carolina is $1,378. That's up nearly 22% from last year. The increase is 3 times the national rate of inflation, which is at a near 40-year high. Some North Carolina realtors are recommending buying rather than renting since interest rates remain low. And today is Wright Brothers Day, which celebrates 118 years since the two brothers made history with their airplane at Kitty Hawk. In 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright launched that first flight from a sand dune covering 120 feet in 12 seconds. The country has been marking the day officially since 1963. President Joe Biden has proclaimed today Wright Brothers Day. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Helen Holt with your WWAY Storm Track 3 AccuWeather forecast. We'll see a mixture of sunshine and cloudiness today, unseasonably warm again with high temperatures in the mid to upper 70s inland with lower 70s along the beaches. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy skies, mild low temperatures in the upper 50s to near 60. Saturday, partly sunny and unseasonably warm, highs in the upper 70s inland to the low 70s along the Atlantic coastline. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. Twomenandatruck.com.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtonymag.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
If you want to talk about culture and politics without all the caterwauling, then you'll love Heard Tell Radio with me, your host, Andrew Donaldson, every weekday morning, 6 a.m. with a replay at 3 p.m. right here on the Big Talker. Catch it on the Listen Live tab on the app or watch on the Facebook page.
Come on, you stupid computer. There it is. Good morning, boys and girls.
Good morning.
It's the Asylum. Right here on the Big Talker Online, that's right. Up and at 'em, kids. Time to go be the best you best you can be, or whatever. There's a lot of energy, a lot of crazy, a lot of happening on a Friday, and it just makes you want to scream and bang your head. I can't believe it. So far, we're through another week. Friday morning here on the Asylum. Sir Knight has joined us from some sequestered place.
I'm calling from the keep. Oh, yeah.
Do you have little gun lockers there?
There is a gun locker, yes. And axes and swords and, you know, all that stuff. It wouldn't be a keep without some metal and cast iron on the wall.
Fun fact, I was a security guard on a number of occasions.
Oh, but if you work around the music and entertainment industry, sooner or later you have to watch some stuff.
Oh, this is before I was good enough to play music in front of people. You know, the abatement, what was that? Asbestos abatement sites that were done at public schools back in the, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s.
Oh, yeah.
So the gig was to hang out by the entrance of this negative pressure environment and make sure that no feral humans wandered in late night.
I remember watching
Exciting
construction
stuff.
equipment.
Yeah, it's like
They had me watch the lights for marathons and
come
stuff.
on, do a flip. I mean, that's what I'd be. I'd be like, you know, cow tipping with those construction equipment. I don't know. I was walking my beat. I came around and the backhoe was on its side, just, you know, crying. I don't know what happened.
I remember I had to work at a haunted house. I was doing security at the Panic Attack haunted attraction.
That was a lot of fun.
When it was over there on Marsteller Street, I was just getting out of BLET, and I was looking for a security gig. And sure enough, lo and behold, those guys reeled me in. And, yeah, they had all the actors and stuff. People lined up to come to that thing. I know a lot of people went to Panic Attack.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that
And
line
this
was usually wrapped around the parking lot.
And this was 2012. And you see those same people, I know they got moved out to a cornfield. The guys were financially irresponsible, and they didn't pay a lot of people. Like, a lot of people got left out of money. I had to walk up there and pretty much use my security skills to guarantee I'm getting paid. My first day, I had to escort the old security guy out of the place because they didn't pay him. So that was a sign of things to come.
Well, because when they started, they had money, and they gave a lot of it. I was working at the at a television station at the time, and they paid us quite a lot of money to do their campaign. So I find it interesting that trend continued long after my exodus.
Oh, in Wilmington, the contractors, they roll the dice every time they do a job like that when it comes to small business and occasional business and, you know, seasonal business.
Kind of like working for Trump. You're never sure if you're going to get paid or not.
Well, these guys, they made sure to pay me. You know, I told them, like, hey, I'm your security. Like, if there's gonna be people coming in and out of this place that are saying, hey, pay me, and you don't pay them, and I have to walk them out, like, I want a guarantee.
I need extra ammo. That's what I'd be saying. Right? If you want me to defend against people whose money you just jacked, I'm going to need a bigger gun.
Well, they reeled aspiring actors in to put on costumes and, you know, scare people and stuff. And some of them were just like, you know, teenagers in high school looking for a job, you know, trying to learn what it's like to be a mascot practically and carry around the suit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people would show up.
These are life skills right here where they're learning.
Oh, and people would show up and they'd walk through and have never failed. You had the people that would punch or, you know, hit the actors and stuff. And then I'd have to run through, and we had these secret doorways all set up and little peepholes and little hidden doorways that I could spring out and grab people.
Kind of like in the back of a retail mall.
Kind of like
a little
that
labyrinth of back area. Whatever.
That's what Disney has. You know, you walk through Disney making a scene, somebody will pop out of a trap door, grab you. Yeah, you don't see the light of day for a couple hours, you know.
And you wake up in Serbia somewhere. Wow, I have been conscripted into a new life. Well, LG&E, I'm sorry you're going to be a little late on that check. That was a bit of a stretch. I'm sorry, but no, some of these drunk places, some of the drunk people in these places, because the year one of the years that I went, I got tickets because I did their commercial, and it was like, hey, you want to see it on for real? Because I got to see it all, as Mechanica. And then we'd set up all the lights and do the shot and then move on to the next one. So I knew all the secrets that were in there and hadn't seen it as a event or, as an experience. And apparently the lady behind me was completely freaked out because it took like 2 or 3 days to dig all of her fingernails out of my back. Because she was with somebody else. Like, even her boyfriend, the guy that she was with, was like, man, I'm sorry about that. You all right? There's blood coming off of my back. I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. This is just part of life. No big deal.
I had to walk people out of that haunted house that had gotten too scared and couldn't control themselves. And they actually had T-shirts for it. Like, I
lost.
peed myself. Yeah, I peed myself, and we'd give them a shirt. And some people were like, oh, awesome, hey,
The others are like, I'm not being shamed this way.
I peed myself at the haunted house because I got so scared, and they gave me this T-shirt. Awesome. Yeah. Other people, they hand the T-shirt, they're like, please don't remind me. Please don't remind me.
Yeah, and it's not like you can do the picture like you do on the roller coaster, right? When you hit the top of the roller coaster and your face is all contorted, and it's like, oh, there's your perfect wedding picture right there.
Oh, yeah. And funny story, right? Like, the guys who were operating it, right? They were 2 guys, they're the locals and stuff, but one of the guys, I think he was into me, right? And I was working, and you work in these dark, really dark rooms. And I remember I was in this
room. You have to feel your way around.
Well, and this guy, the owner, the guy who was running it was in there with me, right? And he's like, oh, hey, how you doing? I'm like, oh, doing good, doing good. He's like, have you ever thought about, guys or stuff? And I'm like, nah, I'm not like that, man. Like, sorry, I'm good. I'm straight, And he's like, oh, no, well, would you ever let a guy, And I'm like, no. He's like, well, do you think it's gay if a guy, I'm like, yes, that's the definition of gay, and I don't want in on it. And this is the person who hired me, and I got a gun on my head. It's a dark room. So luckily, he was like, oh, okay, hey, I was just joking with you, man. I was like, okay.
It's amazing how much the timbre of a conversation could be changed so quickly just by sliding a rack.
Oh, well, and you look at it now, I'm surprised, like, they haven't come out with this guy like Joe Exotic where, because I know he was talking with other people, and it's like, I wonder if him being the boss kind of like Harvey Weinstein, some people, that were of weaker thought, or that were more impressionable. Like me is like, nah. I said no, but I fear that there were other people that were like, hey, will I get the leading gig? Can I be the guy on the stilts that walks around out front with the monster head? It's like, how bad do you want that position?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough money in that gig to worry about. It's like, you could be flipping burgers and make twice the money and be treated better.
Yeah, at least McDonald's will pay you at the end.
Right.
You get a check
and their harassment policy is actually financially encouraged. Like, if there's sexual harassment at McDonald's, you're making money.
Oh yeah, they'll march an army of lawyers over there.
Yep, because they want to make sure you don't pull a Boy Scout on them.
They'll end up they'll end up naming the playpen after you.
The safe space.
The safe space.
The Sir Knight safe space.
This McDonald's playground is dedicated by the horrible atrocities of the other manager. They'll have a little article clip at the bottom.
It was from his severance pay that we built this.
This is a Me Too McDonald's.
Man.
But it's good to be on, man. It's good to be on. I had a good time with the family, going up there and seeing them, even if it was just for a night. And Clemens was very nice, man. I liked Clemens. But
it seems like it much higher elevation, almost like out on the Asheville side of things, right?
Oh yeah, well we stopped in Durham on the way back, and this is where it just gets degrading for North Carolina, because when I stopped at Durham, as soon as I'm pulling off the exit on 40 to go stop at Durham, my daughter, she was ready to eat. It was a bathroom break. We pull over, and the first thing I see when getting off the exit is 10 bums in the median holding signs. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I pull into the gas station. There's 3 vagabonds walking around out there. I take my daughter. We go inside. I'm like, hey, where's your bathroom? Oh, we had to close it to the public because the homeless people were messing it up. And I'm like, what type of nation is this? Like, what type of city is this? Like, I talk bad about Wilmington, but like, is it that bad out here?
Oh, yeah.
And the guy's like, yeah, Durham's that bad. And go ahead.
I was going to say, at one of my gigs, where I carry a lot of my equipment in, and it's, it's a pretty good lug of equipment, and they have a parking lot directly in front of the building, but God forbid you park there, somebody's going to come out of there with their ass on fire, screaming all kinds of things like, you can't park there. And it's like, dude, I only need it for a minute. Well, make sure you move it. Dude, really? I work in the same building. I mean, what's the problem? So when we first moved in and started doing work, there was only one working toilet, and it was downstairs. And only the 2 or 3 guys in that shop were allowed to use that door or that bathroom. And it's like, really? I'm going to shit in your headphones. As soon as I find them, me and a few of the dogs down on the beach are going to just fill these puppies up with all that we can. Because that's just, we're trying. These are the type of people that are like, you're coming up on a construction zone where one lane is closed, right? And these are the jackasses that come barreling up at full speed, 80 miles an hour in a 45, trying to get to that one opening just before the barrels close off your lane. That's who these people are.
Tony Stewart their way over whenever they get out there.
And then they wonder why everybody's throwing rocks and cans and stuff at them. And it's like, dude, I had a situation kind of like that in a parking lot where the guy just had to barrel around me and get that parking lot. When I saw him inside the store, I had bought everything I needed and was out the door while he was still trying to figure out how, where his wallet was. I mean, he was not a small man. And it's like, okay, so I'm sitting now in the parking lot waiting for his rotund, corpulent self to waddle out of the door and start loading up his car. And I'm just sitting there looking at him like, all that for this? Really? And I'm betting you could really benefit from those Diet Cokes. Those are really going to go a long way to help you, It just makes me feel better about myself.
When you're starting that low, man, everything will take you up, man. Walk to your mailbox. That's an improvement.
Right. I mean, it's a step. Get it? Step in the right direction.
Well, I tell you, Durham needs to take some steps, man, because that was terrible. When we left the gas station, luckily, the bums didn't say anything to me. I got gas in the car. I went across the street to the McDonald's. And when I go to the McDonald's, sure enough, vagabonds and bums in the parking lot. Luckily, none of them say anything. They had a security guard out there. So I take my daughter inside. I'm just like, okay, we'll just use the bathroom in McDonald's, right? We go into the McDonald's bathroom. There's the bums had taken all the toilet paper. When we went and saw it, there was a sleeping bag, like a sleeping bag. They had set up a sleeping bag in the bathroom of McDonald's. Nobody was in there.
Yeah, McDonald's play and stay.
Yeah, and I looked at my daughter, and she's like, I gotta use the bathroom. I'm like, just pee anywhere. I don't care. Pee on the floor. Pee anywhere. Like if this is how they have their bathroom, like I don't care.
That's why there is a hole in the floor.
And there's no toilet paper. There's stuff. They've scraped up the place.
This is where was this? This is in
Durham.
Okay.
Yeah,
this is like the second ghetto of North Carolina, right?
Man, I was ready to get out of there. Like, people had left beer bottles all over the place. You know, I remember when Wilmington kind of looked like that. And we've had to fight tooth and nail to get those bums and run them out. But here it is in Durham. I guess they all went over there. Like Clemens.
Well, yeah, the rent's cheaper.
Totally different. Clemens was totally different. You pull off the exit into Durham, immediately, bums with their signs out. And it really gets me. I mean, everybody knows there's 3 types of homeless. We got chronic, transitional, and episodic, right? And transitional, hey, after Florence, there were people that were transitionally homeless. There are people that are episodically homeless. You know, they can't keep a place. They're bad at paying bills. They get booted out. They got to find a new place. You know,
rehab only lasts 3 months at a time.
Yeah, the roommates end up never liking. Yeah, exactly. But it's the chronic that gets me, because I know there's people out here in this city that, and everybody has seen it. They bear false witness. They say they're vets. They're not really vets. I mean, the low that some of these people will stoop down. And I have to clarify. I'm not talking about
the human race is undefeated.
The family units. Like, I understand there's family units. You don't see family units out there asking for money. Like, you don't see the people who are, you know, transitionally homeless and episodically homeless. You don't see them out in the street. Like, it's the people that just like gave up, and it's like, I am done, don't care. They become chronically homeless, and they're not going to change. And there has to be I keep telling them, and I look at what happened in Durham. I think it was Monday in Durham. A bunch of teenagers stole a car, right, on the 12th. They ended up getting shot up on the 14th, and the cops don't know what exactly happened. Like, it could have been the person who owned the car or whatever. But either way, a bunch of teens stole a car, and they ended up shot. So when you got problems like this, it's a city problem. Like Wilmington's, we've been through that before. But watching another city kind of go through that, and it's like they have to touch the stove. They have to realize, like, you need places, you need programs. Yes, programs. Like, we have the
I think we need to
program
discuss the issue rather than arguing over the issue, because that's one of the things I believe Andrew was talking about, was how it's become a battle between the two sides over the issue, but the issue is never actually involved or addressed or dealt with. And, you know, there's a lot of, I would say there's a wide range of visceral reactions to the experience of homeless.
Oh yeah,
and
especially
I
when he's advocating for veterans, because I mean they got 40,000 veterans.
Now, I would posit that much of the range of response to, you know, the initial response, right? Mom and dad come out of church and they with little girl, and they bump into a homeless person, and they're like, oh, okay, you know, we'll give the guy, you know, $5 and a coffee, and we're doing good, we're doing God's work, we're trying to help. But, you know, the first couple of times you might be able to manage that type of calm demeanor. But after they've, you know, you do this every day at work, and they're hitting you at 6 in the morning, they're hitting you at 9 in the morning, they're hitting you at lunch, they're hitting you in the afternoon, right?
They come up, they can't remember that you gave them money in the first
or
place.
that you told them to go, you know, kick rocks not 3 hours earlier, right? Or I'm just out there trying to enjoy my cigarette break after, you know, busting my nards for 3 hours, and it's like, you know, I just need a break, have a cigarette, go back in. I am not working this job. Right. I'm not working this job to supply your addiction. Right. So, and I've even had the guys argue. It's like, well, you're smoking. Well, yeah. Well, guess what? You know, I don't have a drug problem. I can afford my drugs. Right. I can afford my cigarettes because I'm working. Why are you
expecting? When I run out of the cigarettes in this pack, nobody's going to come to me and say, let me buy you another pack, buddy.
You've been such a good friend to everyone else here. Let's spend $7 on you.
I mean, Durham's got 590 homeless people, right? But there's 590,000 in the U.S. And like I was just saying, 40,000 of those are veterans. Like, and my vitriol is not for the family units, the people that are working through it, right? Like, we should have programs in place, the shelter programs. I mean, people could donate to them at any point. And that's where I suggest people donate. Donate to the shelters. Donate to the people who help the people. Because, I mean, some people are homeless for just a matter of months, right? And to give that person money, hey, that's one thing. Give it to the group that they're going to go to. That way they could help the people after them and stuff. But if they're chronic, if like they choose a life of, and hey, I've been there.
If they are actually at peace, pushing.
You wander the earth, like Jules was talking about in Pulp Fiction. Like, you wander the earth. I just got the clothes on my back. I wish we could go to the pioneer days where it's like I could just take my bag and there's no public or private property. I'm off to see the world, you know. To live off the earth. Unfortunately, you can't do that.
Well, neither can they.
You don't want to work.
I mean, it is possible to live off the earth. There are a lot of people that do it. You know, they're able to plant their own food. Right. You still have to do your own thing. But living off the earth does not mean holding a sign that says, "Homeless, please give change."
Everywhere I go, they're going to treat me like Guy Fieri and give me food, you know.
Right.
Let me up in your kitchen.
Not happening. You know, and of course, you know, some of that is going to, as you know, as I was mentioning, after 15, 20, 30 of these encounters, it's almost like picking at a scab.
Yeah.
That after a while, it's like, you know what, everyone should be absolutely amazed there are not more hospitalizations and news stories of bad things happening.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just that aggravating, you know. And I lose it when drunk people start bothering me at a gig. It's like, look, I'm glad you had a great time, but I don't speak drunk. All right.
And for all the years, all these people wanted to kick around the cops. They want to kick around cops. They want to kick around law. They want to act like everybody should just be. I mean, it's like California. They've destroyed California. Lawmakers and stuff out there. They've destroyed it, but they're not going to stop till it affects all the other states as well. Like, everybody has to let bums all over the place, let them use the when some people used to say the world is my oyster, now they're saying the world is your bathroom and your food trough where you could just leave. They have no regard for the people who live in these communities. They have no regard. And the people who are making the laws and stuff.
Well, why should they?
And the people who go and kick around the cops, we need them to secure these places. Like, I can't tell you how many people have been accosted and harassed by these bums and these vagrants, and some of them are very desperate. Like, and we've all been there. Like, especially with people with children that have to walk around these parking lots, and you get somebody coming up there saying, "Hey, I need $1, I need $1," and no's not enough for them. And then they want to talk to you, and then they want to debate it.
Oh yeah, there's almost an entire psychopathy involved in that. Where they, I mean, and this has been going on since I was a kid, going through the airports, and the Harvey Krishna is trying to sell you a pencil or whatever. Right? So the first thing is eye contact, and once they have eye contact, they have that puppy dog, you know, thing going on, and it's like, not with me, man. I've had 2 kids. Puppy dog don't work on me, man.
The Hare Krishnas. You could go ring your bell over there. Yeah. Like, the Hare
right. And that's, you know, and that's whatever works is fine. But again, the whole thing behind our Constitution is you have the right to pursue happiness as long as you don't interfere with somebody else. The moment you step into my face and try to get up on me about needing food or something, you are no longer, you know, playing by the rules.
Well, listen to this, man. In New York, right? And this kind of gets me because in New York, you think of all the homeless. They're leading with the homeless, right? Those people can't fix that problem.
Their homeless has a union.
Oh yeah, they give them power. Like, they want those people on the street. That's what these people. That's what I don't realize, that they want the people on the street. Why do you want these people on the street? Why? I mean, this Eric Adams, the new guy, right? Like, I could say a lot of good stuff about him, whatever. I really can't. He's better than de Blasio. Like, wow. Okay, trust me, you had a lot to work with there. Okay, you showed up on your first day of the job. You're already better than de Blasio. Okay? But he says that the bums in the shelters, they need better than chicken nuggets. Like, chicken nuggets, that's degrading. And our children.
Just imagine if you learned the skill of cooking, how much further you could take that.
Our children eat chicken nuggets in school. And it's not good enough for them? It's not good enough for them?
Oh, no. I mean, Come on, this is who we are. Go to what was it? What 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago when the QAnon moron had to have organic food in jail, and they gave it to him. This is who we are.
I mean, when you could say, I want to choose a life where I don't work, I don't contribute anything. Number one, you could go with Bernie Sanders in that route. Hey, you could do that where I don't want to work, I don't want to do anything.
I think that's a misrepresentation of his point, but go ahead. I mean, it is. I mean, if you listen to his development over the last 40 years, he has never said that. He has only said that we could do more with the money that we're spending on stupid, like the military budget, where it's good to have a military budget. Don't get me wrong. It's just it's insane to give a budget and then require them to spend the entire budget so that they can get more the next year. If we were to seriously encourage innovation, we would look at a branch or a team or whatever, and they said, look, we were able to do the same job for half the money. Hey, half that money can go to help any number of social issues.
Bernie Sanders espouses laziness. Like, if you could put laziness into one person, it's pretty much Bernie Sanders. Like, yeah, he's better than Biden. He's better than, Clinton. And I'll give him that. He's better than that. Would I rather him be president than Biden be president? I guess, yeah. Considering everything that's happened so far, as Biden's president, I don't think Bernie would have left all those people in Afghanistan to die. I don't think Bernie would have, choked with Russia.
Right.
Well, I don't know. He honeymooned in North. Yeah. So
I don't think that
maybe.
I don't think people have read enough of what he's trying to say. They only take the sound bites and jump on those. Because a lot of the sound bites can be strung together to sound like a socialist agenda, when in fact his actual basis, his entire form, is based on everybody contributing. And as we contribute, we have this money that we collect in our taxes and other revenue, that what we're doing with it is absolutely irresponsible. He's not saying that you can live for free and get free food. He's not saying that. Not at all. He's saying that if we work together, we can take care of each other.
Man,
and many people jump on that and take it in the wrong direction by not fully unpacking everything involved in what he's saying.
And I just say that because so many people are going to take what he said and apply that to, hey, I could get it, like Andrew Yang when he was talking about, hey, $1,000 for everybody. That is a signal to some people, I could quit working. I don't have to work anymore. I don't have to have a job.
But that's the issue of our education. That's our social and social education problem. That's not, because as Andrew pointed out, the human race is undefeated. But if we give the human race better tools to work with across all axes, I don't think that this would be near the problem that it is. But it sounds socialist in a way because it requires social programs where we take this money and instead of killing brown people in other countries, we actually take this money and help the people within our own borders. Everything from vets to homeless to abused shelter to domestic violence could all be eradicated within 2 generations with effective social programs and more effective education.
But you're talking about the transitionals.
No, I'm talking about everybody, man. I'm talking everybody.
You look at
if
the
they
veterans,
are beyond the point of help,
domestically abused and family units, that's only a percentage. There's another percentage where they're bums. They are bums. They need direction. They need purpose because they have none of that there.
And those programs exist. We just can't have them in North Carolina.
Yeah, the way these people run these liberal cities, it's like they want those people there. Kind of like how we talked about, the people who give the bums money and they love seeing the bum there because that's their opportunity to feel like a better person.
Where they atone for their sins of,
Yeah,
the
like, hey, I was a jerk all day, but I gave the bum $5, okay? And I didn't see him shoot up the money. I saw him walk into the Burger King today with the money after I gave it to him, so maybe he's buying food today, and maybe he's learning his lesson.
But I think that's still being
I'm not trying to be heartless. A lot of people think I'm
not
heartless.
necessarily
That's why I
heartless,
have
but
to-
we're being more. We're using it more as fodder for conversation instead of actually looking at programs that could help them and how we can help those programs take care of these
Well,
problems.
like I said, that you could, like, there's places that will gladly accept donations. That, I mean, we have the shelter system down here, right? We have we have shelters. Durham has a shelter, right?
But we
Now,
don't
their
have any.
shelter
We
can
don't
only
have.
hold 200 people.
We don't
And-
have
and
any
that's-
comprehensive programs. That's the problem. I mean, you can set up shelters all day long. I can make 1,000 little tiny homes all day
Well,
long.
we've tried the programs before. I remember they had the downtown ambassadors, right? In which they'd have people that will work downtown. They give them the polo shirt. They're an ambassador. They walk around picking up trash, showing people, giving people directions. You know,
Writing
just being
tickets.
Like, they didn't even have to write tickets. They were just, well, I think some of them did. You're right.
Yeah,
Some of
the
them did
ambassadors are still
enforce some of the
downtown
regulations.
with the little blue-green polos on, walking around, and they are helpful. But
yeah.
it's not a program that addresses the issue we're trying to.
Well, they tried to offer that to some of the homeless community to help out with that, since they have, you know, knowledge and they got street smarts and they know the turns and the curves around the alleys and stuff, you know. So they put some polos on them, but it didn't really work out. And it's like, you can't just throw somebody a job.
Well, they're not exactly trained in mental health and that sort of thing either. They're like, oh, hey, the trolley comes in 20 minutes. So
See,
I
the
don't
mental
accept that
illness.
as a program.
Mental illness, right? Mental illness is something that I take seriously. It's something that's very serious, and I'm not trying to diminish that. But in a way, mental illness pretty much, I mean, layman's terms, crazy. So you have crazy homeless people. You have mentally ill homeless people. That is not the place to have mentally ill people. Like, mentally ill people need to be somewhere safe where they can't hurt anybody, where they can't hurt themselves. I mean, you look at the suicide rate of some of the homeless people and the overdose and the death by cops. I mean, and it terrible that they kill other people. I mean, the mental illness. I mean, we're not just talking OCD where the guy just keeps like cleaning his pillowcase every day, cleaning his pillowcase every day, cleaning his pillowcase every day. You know, I'm talking about schizophrenia. I mean, some of them have psychosis. I mean, these people should not be on the street. They need to have a place where they could go, where they could contribute to society.
Right, and
just
that
bringing up
would
Job
require
Corps.
money that's currently being spent on, you know, stuff that's not
That's the thing.
needed just to end up with a zero budget spent, you know, zero
Yeah.
balance
We
at the end of
hemorrhage
the year.
money out, and we think like, hey, you know, we'll give some money to this homeless thing, to this homeless. No. We need to have a big, broad approach to this
Right.
that could affect all cities. 'Cause
Unfortunately, it's not free. And
It's
all
not
Bernie
free.
Sanders, for example, was trying to say is, look, we could cut some of the budget that we're just wasting on creating a budget to have a budget in these departments and take some of that money that you would be more efficient and progressive with and use it to to fund a program of this nature. The one in Washington, upstate Washington, is completely donation driven, and I think there's a couple of churches involved as well, where they turned basically part of the industrial district into a tiny home village to help the chronic, the transitional, and all the homeless. Right?
See, they make a place, and a lot of people would hate on
But
this
it takes
because
money. It takes money. It takes people. And in order to do
But that's
that,
the
and
thing,
it takes
I
trained
believe we-
people. It's not like you're just throwing somebody in there to flip burgers. You got to turn, you know, somebody who's trained in de-escalation, somebody who understands mental issues, somebody who is less reactionary and more visionary, so that they can work with these people to either help them transition into a normal life or to at least get them to a point where they're not going to hurt themselves and others, and they begin to understand that there are other people involved in the world.
See,
'Cause
I would love it if that would work out with all.
Right, but it's going to take money.
But, I
and
mean,
if we're spending
here we
more
have-
money on tank treads than we are on mental health, then yeah, I
mean,
think
they
we're a
got
little out of
crazy
balance.
Kids staying with their mom, and it's like every other day you see police body cam videos where they got to go in there for somebody who's mentally unwell, and they stab their own mother or they stab their own father. I mean, if they're violent in any way, we can't have them on the street. Like,
Well,
that's,
keep in mind
it's
that
a
all we
flight
are is
risk.
violence. Our entire society is based on making money on violence. Cop
but
shows
people
make
don't
money
stab
on
their
violence.
own family members.
Sure
if
they do.
somebody's willing to
Sure
stab
they
their
do.
own mother,
It's got to
then
happen
they're
a million
willing to
times a
stab
year.
a bunch of people in public.
Oh, yeah. I guess
You
you've
know,
not been
and-
watching. I mean, it may not be a knife. It might be a gun. It might be that his mom dropped him off with a high-powered rifle. But, no, that's happening every single day. And these
Well, you
issues...
look at those guys that you're talking about, the kids taking guns to school in the TikTok challenge.
Right.
Like, all of a sudden, that's become a thing now where kids take pictures of them holding their guns and, you know, trying to freaking scare everybody and make the world into Grand Theft Auto, you know.
Right, and if we had the programs in place to identify and work with those kids, they would have already been pulled. But we're not. We're spending money, as Andrew pointed out, on a daycare system that trains people with just enough information to push the buttons and make a living, or not.
I mean, our government has enough money to fund Job Corps, and half the people don't even know what Job Corps is. So I could imagine they could make a big boy Job Corps where you take people, you teach them basic skills, you give them a place to stay.
That's what this program is in upstate Washington. That's the whole purpose behind that program in Washington. Now, if that was funded with the same type of funding that we do for, say, defense.
See, Bernie Sanders, I fear Bernie Sanders would just let the place turn into a drug den. Like we have an autonomous zone. Like, hey,
See,
let's just
you've
give
not
them
been
a
paying
plot of
attention
land
to
and
what
let
I've been
them run
talking
their
about. This system, this program that they have, and there's 2 or 3 of them, but the one I think that is the one they're modeling after. No, man, they have a Sally port, dude. If you show up drunk, you go to jail. If you show up drunk, you go to jail. If you show up high, you go to jail. If you're sober, you're allowed to come in and have food and water and drink and shower and laundry and all that stuff. But if you disobey the rules, you go to jail. It's pretty strict. It's not like it's going to turn into a drug den because the people working there are like, no. We are basically drug counselors, right? They are I mean, they're trained counselors that if you're, high on drugs, it's like, okay, you're going to jail because I'm not putting you in with the rest of the people that I just spent 4 years getting to the point that they can wash their own face in the morning and realize it's a normal thing.
Yeah, I'm not talking about white coats showing up and locking them up in jail because I don't want homeless people cast in jail. But at the same time, they do need a facility, and they need to be taken to that facility.
Well, they need to understand that there are consequences for action, and that's 90% of what drives this program, that your actions directly impact your quality of life. So if you decide to pick up the trash around your house looks better. And everybody around you, including the people that are, the ambassadors, if you want to use a term, their job is basically to make sure that everybody is getting in tune. Right? There is no alcohol, but there's plenty of water, there's plenty of tea, there's plenty of coffee.
I mean, the ambassadors, one of the reasons that they came about was partially because of the homeless situation. And this was after
But
Florence.
it wasn't designed to fix that. This program is designed
specifically. They were designed to pretty much do what I've been doing. Hey, you can't stand here. Go stand on the property
that's
I'm not in
useless.
control of.
That's useless.
Yeah, it pretty much puts them, it corners them all up in one area, which, I mean, is better than having them spread out, but still it's not a solution. I mean, the end goal is I don't want to see them suffering on the street like that. And if they're not going to help themselves, it's almost like mental health. Like somebody's got to help them. Somebody's got to tell them what they don't want to hear. Like I would love to have a free world where the guy who's sitting on the edge of the bridge about to jump could just like, hey, live his life, and he's not affecting anybody, but sooner or later, somebody's going to have to pull him off that ledge. Whether he wants it or not, somebody's got to stop him from doing and making a terrible mistake. And we need to do that.
But that's not that was never why the ambassadors were.
No, the ambassadors were started pretty much because they needed people out there to help. They wanted people to make it presentable. I mean, because these guys, they pick up trash too. They help the waste management service down there.
Right.
I mean, these guys.
So
are
none of their job was really actually to address the homeless situation at all. It's just like an afterthought. Hey, if you do run across a homeless guy, do this. It's not what they're trained to do.
They opened the door to a few people who needed opportunity, to some people. Now, granted, whether that worked out or not, I have no idea.
Right, but again,
the
impetus for the program was not to address this problem. If we're going to address this problem, then we need to look at programs that are actually working. And unfortunately, all of these programs are going to require money. But what's happened in Washington is even the people, the property values where they are have actually gone up because they are now treated like human beings, right? You may not like them. I may not like them. I sure as hell don't like being, bothered every morning for $1. But it eliminates that problem not by being a jerk to them, but by giving them something they need.
That's the whole thing, is giving them what they need. Even if they don't want it, it's what they need. Like, you need a place to stay. You need a place to go. Like, I've seen in all the places I've done security.
But not just a place to go, but a place to relearn how to live. That's the issue.
And a lot of
so sending them away from a bad spot isn't going to do anything to help the situation. It's only going to make it worse and move them all to Durham, right? But if we had an actual program where these people were brought into a situation where they were given an opportunity to sort of reboot their life, and it's going to be just like in rehab or the where you have to go to jail at night because you got busted for DUI, but you still have a job. And they test you before you go to, before they take you in for the night.
Like most business owners in New Hanover County, they get like 20 DUIs, and it's like, how is this guy? I mean, he owns 3 businesses, but he has to have a guy drive him to work every day. Like, I don't get that. Like,
right. And I mean, I had to do that.
He gets busted in 3 DUIs. He's still out. He can't drive anymore, but he's still out.
Right. Hang on, I got to take a break because I have to take care of some business over here. So, if you don't mind, we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A Brunswick County man is charged with extortion after making threats to the Ocean Isle Beach police chief and the Brunswick County sheriff. According to warrants, John Nathan Tabor allegedly threatened 2 men to give him immunity or he would release false information. The threats reportedly happened to Ocean Isle Beach Police Chief Ken Bellamy from November 10th through Tuesday. The warrant also says Brunswick County Sheriff John Ingram was also threatened on Tuesday. Tabor has been arrested and is being held in the Brunswick County Jail. The Temple of Israel is one of the most recognizable buildings in downtown Wilmington, and it needs your help. The synagogue has stood for a century and a half and needs $500,000 for its restoration. The building needs repairs due to water damage and deterioration. The temple is the oldest Jewish house of worship in continuous use in the state, but it has been closed for worship and other events since last year. Fundraising began 2 months ago. So far, $200,000 have been donated or pledged towards the $500,000 goal. According to a new report, North Carolina is among 10 states in the country seeing the highest jump in rental rates. Rent.com is reporting the average rent for 1 bedroom in North Carolina is $1,378. That's up nearly 22% from last year. The increase is 3 times the national rate of inflation, which is at a near 40-year high. Some North Carolina realtors are recommending buying rather than renting since interest rates remain low. And today is Wright Brothers Day, which celebrates 118 years since the two brothers made history with their airplane at Kitty Hawk. In 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright launched that first flight from a sand dune covering 120 feet in 12 seconds. The country has been marking the day officially since 1963. President Joe Biden has proclaimed today Wright Brothers Day. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Helen Holt with your WWAY Storm Track 3 AccuWeather forecast. We'll see a mixture of sunshine and cloudiness today, unseasonably warm again with high temperatures in the mid to upper 70s inland with lower 70s along the beaches. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy skies, mild low temperatures in the upper 50s to near 60. Saturday, partly sunny and unseasonably warm, highs in the upper 70s inland to the low 70s along the Atlantic coastline. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Folks, you know you're all looking for that special gift. Lines are long, traffic is frustrating, supply chains in the news. Just take a deep breath. If you're anywhere near Oak Island, come by Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive. Avoid the traffic, the lines, the frustration, and get that extraordinary and special gift. From high-end diamond rings to Larimar, from necklaces to bracelets, watches, and unique jewelry. And you also get one-on-one service with their experienced staff. Great prices now, just in time for the holidays. Come by and check out Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man. Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
Listen to Tom Goolsby on The Chad Adams Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to the Asylum on the Big Talker Online. Friday morning.
Bring on the noise.
That's right. We're also talking mental health, but so our friend Jeff Rivenbark over at WWAY was talking about a story on his news break. I don't know if y'all were paying attention. Today is Wright Brothers Day, which celebrates 118 years since the two brothers made history with their airplane at Kitty Hawk. Back in 1903, Orville and Wilbur launched that first flight from a sand dune covering 120 feet in 12 seconds. 10 feet a second, not bad. The country has been marking the day officially since 1963, and President Joe Biden, your friend and mine, has proclaimed today Wright Brothers Day.
And they did it all without taking videos and putting them on Facebook and TikTok and all that stuff. Yes, they imagine if you're the first person flying on something and you don't record it and you don't want the public to see.
They did have a dude out there with a film camera, but due to budget constraints, he only had like 15 feet of film or something like that. So you get to see part of it. I mean, it's like imagine trying to record the first flight with a flip phone. Right?
They try to get it up in air. The guy runs the 15 seconds, and it's like, we got to do it tomorrow,
we're done.
Guys.
Cut, Brent. Wait, we want to do it again. Go ahead.
I got a gig over there at the Titanic. I'm late for it. I got to go to the Titanic.
Grab an oar, start swimming. We'll make it work. But the part now, I was chatting with Andrew yesterday that his guest is a NASA smart guy. Like NASA, as Andrew put it, he had called Michael to do a hit on his podcast or something, and he said, "I'm sorry, I can't make your podcast right now. I have to move the probe, the spacecraft that's orbiting a planet. I have to move it so it doesn't get smashed by an asteroid." And it's like, okay, now that's a gig I want. I mean, how cool is that? That, I'm sorry I can't talk to you right now. I'm going to have to get to you in a minute. I have to rearrange this space. I have to.
Hold on a second. I'm going to stop by the bathroom, and then I'm going to save the world real quick. There's a satellite out there. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, I'm back.
Yeah,
Back.
this is all in a day's work. Trying not to destroy a $5 billion spacecraft or whatever. I mean, that's a real gig. That's what you aspire to. But my point here is I find it rather incongruous with history that, yes, the flight took place here in North Carolina at Kitty Hawk, just north of where we are. Beautiful place, great idea. Put up a big thing, launch the airplane. But the airplane, the design, and everything about it had nothing to do with North Carolina except for the test flight.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but as
do you know where that was done?
My heels are in the tar in this. I remember they said that. What was it? They were from Idaho.
Wow, I'm. Ow, that hurts.
Or Iowa.
Ooh, good Lord. You want to try for a triple where the scores can really change?
Here, though. They picked this place because of its beautiful conditions.
No, they picked this place because if they crashed, there was water, right? I mean, and there was nobody around, so if something went wrong and it caught fire and everybody died, right, there was going to be nobody around to see it. There were a number of reasons to pick, and being the beautiful place that it is was not one of them.
Well, if I were going to die, around Kitty Hawk would be, a
well,
decent
at the time,
place.
it was empty. Right. So if they had medical guys on standby, they had an ambulance. So if anything went wrong, it wasn't like all the tourists of the Grand Strand would be sitting there watching a dude from Ohio's gut come spraying on them from an airplane. So yeah, they're gonna do it away from everybody else. And scrub brush in Ohio is not fun to land on. So if he can smash into some sand, I think that's a better way to do it. But the point being that the genius that makes America is from all over America. And sometimes we take this idea of borders a little too seriously. Right?
But they picked a beautiful place.
Oh, yeah.
And North Carolina is a beautiful place for that.
And that's why it's now, one of the most expensive places to live in North Carolina.
I mean, if they designed it over there where they're from, they could have flew it over there, but some reason they chose to come over here because, like you said, it was clear.
Well, that and ocean breezes. That and ocean breeze, right? Because they have a guaranteed wind, which they don't necessarily have in Ohio. There's a lot of rain in Ohio, which is why they have fantastic corn and tobacco and all the other wonderful things that we consume that do us absolutely no good.
I mean, I think their license plate should be like, hey, we designed the first flight, but still it's like the first flight was here, man. Like, that's on our license plate. Like, if it was so good, you could have went somewhere else and flew it, but you chose North Carolina, so we're going to take that.
Right.
Like the candies, I mean, hell.
Coffee down the wrong pipe.
That's that Colombian stuff, man.
Yep.
They're trying to kill you over there.
And now it's in my nose. I'm gonna be smelling coffee all day long.
Yeah, having Colombian stuff in your nose, man, that's terrible. Feeling it all day.
Yep. And it stays with you. Oh man.
That coffee's your little friend, man. It's your little friend.
It keeps me going. So I'm still sorry. Somebody just sent a picture of the. Apparently, they're just catching up. Like woke up this week, and it's a video of the Fox News Christmas tree lighting ceremony. I guess. I mean, whatever happened, that tree was definitely not, fire retardant.
You couldn't. Yeah, that tree was. Call the Shriners. They got burned.
Yeah,
like
really bad.
That tree.
And I think it's just a bad idea to put something that flammable in a public park because we have idiots like the guy who lit it, and it's like, you know what? That's who we are. This is who we are. Trump
Yeah,
and
but then
Trump
again,
and
I
Biden
mean-
is who we are as a country.
Then
You put
again,
those two men
New
together, and
York
that's
is
us.
known for their Christmas trees. I mean, they got the plaza. I've never been there, but I've heard stories about how those big trees out there and how beautiful they are, especially in a place where you're surrounded by buildings.
Well,
And
right.
It's like,
But those guys are being paid, there's, an army of dudes being paid $9 an hour to make that thing look like it does.
oh yeah, helping small
It's not like a
businesses, the rich
family.
man's excuse to blow money. Yeah,
Right. It's not like your family was decorating a tree and each ornament means something. No. These ornaments
Yeah.
are shipped to him by the thousands, and a guy is just like, okay, it's 6 inches away from the last one. I need a red one. Okay, 6 inches away, I need a gold one. Okay, 6 inches, I need a red one.
They got like 4 cherry pickers over there,
Right.
and they got a concrete team at the bottom.
And they got an
setting
army
anchors and stuff.
doing this. So, this isn't exactly the Christmas spirit as, pure and intended as you would think. It's, oh, hey, look, here's a tax donation, a tax deductible donation to the community, right? We're going to put $1 million into this Christmas tree, and that's $1 million less that I don't have to pay taxes on.
Hey man, it's still more beautiful than the tree that CNN would come up with. I mean, imagine that thing. Just like Andrew Cuomo and all that sexual abuse allegations. Somebody probably spray paint Me Too on it. And it would have to have glasses.
Dude, they'll do that on a building. They don't care. They wouldn't care. They really wouldn't. Right? I mean, the dude couldn't. I don't think the dude who set the one on fire cared at all, whether it was Fox, CNN, or Kroger.
He was a Grinch. He was trying to destroy
Well, I don't even think he was
Christmas.
that. I think he was just, a jerk. He's just one of these guys that's like,
when you burn a Christmas tree, like he could have burned anything else, like the trash can or something, but no, he burned the tree. He saw the tree, and he saw the star atop of it, and it just made his little heart feel cold.
No, he saw that thing, and he's like, if I set this on fire, there's no way I'm getting away. And if I get arrested, I'm going to be fed, housed, and clothed for the next 3 years. This is perfect. Because he had just been released from jail. And it was like, well, what is he going to do? He doesn't have a job. He's,
Well,
he's
that
a
sounds
convicted
like New
felon.
York, They commit crimes, you let them go, they burn down some shit, you put them back in.
Free food.
He'll be out in time to burn the next tree next year,
And, another free year of hots and cots and mopping floors. And
Like
daily
Joe
sex,
Pesci. He'll do it again because he's stupid like that. By the time he's getting up out of parole, they'll be putting up that tree again, and boom, he'll burn it down again.
Oh, no. Next year, they're going to make that thing out of, steel and asbestos. And that dude's going to be standing out there with a light. He's going to go through. He's going to go through an entire package of shoplifted lighters, and the cops are going to just be sitting on the side going, "Mm-hmm."
I still think that was a good point you made about the Pope with the bulletproof glass.
Yeah, I mean, if you have faith, come on, God will save me.
I live with faith.
Right.
And 2 inches of bulletproof glass around me.
Oh, wait a minute. So, if I'm not mistaken, because I do not know your genealogy by name, but Miss Allen has offered that the mayor in Southport declared December 16th Mel Gibson Day.
Mel Gibson Day, huh?
Yeah, I
Mel Gibson. Well, Mel Gibson. Do you want to go into this, TK?
Well,
do you want to
first,
talk about Mel Gibson?
let's start with Southport, all right? Because that's earlier in the sentence. The mayor in Southport decided to do away with the police department. Now, admitted, the entire police department was more corrupt than the Trump organization, but without any police support, the only law enforcement support they have is sheriffs, right? And sheriffs are more concerned with court matters than they are with law enforcement, direct to public, you're speeding, we give you a ticket kind of thing, right? I mean, I think Mark Benson could probably more accurately unpack this, but it seems a little overburdening to just tell your town, your tourist town, which could really use a lot of protection when the tourists are there, and says, yeah, our police department just needs to go away.
Yeah, I mean, they if they point to corruption, we've had our share of corruption.
And we
I
just
remember
replace
there
them.
was I mean, Carolina Beach. I mean, and we had sheriffs all over the place. I mean, there's been corruption in law enforcement, but there's no need to close down the police. That's an excuse to do something stupid.
Hey, and
Like,
with
and
all that
that's
money
just-
we save, we can get a really nice boat.
And they have private security. Like, I hate to make, and I've heard people make this point before, but it rings so true. And I'm not trying to recite something, but I mean, these people have protection. They are protected. Like, you look at how much money these people are spending, especially those people who want to defund police. They pay so much money in private security, but they want to take away our protection. You know, and people could say what they want about Trump, but Trump, he did stand with the cops, and he did stand with law and order, and he wanted the common man.
Yeah, because somebody was going to shoot him if he didn't.
But hey, he knew that. He knew that. He knew.
So does the
that's
Pope.
the thing. All these other people are riding in Pope mobiles. I mean, they have private security. You can't. You can't even go up to some of these people without Secret Service stopping you. Meanwhile, we're not even supposed to have cops in our streets. We're not supposed to have people. We can't have security, and then we can't have guns. Like, their logic is stupid. They want you to be ready and ripe for the wave of criminals that they're about to unleash, and they don't want you to have a gun. And every time somebody stops a criminal, every time somebody stops somebody, they make it seem bad. They stand with the bad guy. I've seen them stand with more pedophiles and child molesters and stuff.
Well, I
over
think
the
that's a
past month.
popularity game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they defend some of these people. Like, I
Well,
mean, they're terrible people.
Because they
You know?
need their own votes. They need to sound. They need to keep up the appearance to their voter base. I mean, that's what the entire movement has been. It seems since 2016, where there's this coalescing to the two extreme ends, which is antithetical to what we actually need. We need to come more
you got
towards the
some
center.
people that are like, hey, the NSA should be able to listen to us because I don't want these domestic terrorists. Like, they're pushing for the government to have more power, arrest people for no reason at all. But then you got other people that are like, forget the government. We don't need police. We shouldn't have cops.
Now, do you think there might be some opportunity for solutions somewhere between the two ends of screaming?
I mean, we don't have much of a choice. I mean, that's.
Well,
I mean,
actually,
we pretty much what we do.
We've never
I think-
we've never acknowledged that choice.
Well, I'll admit, right? I'll admit in the past, we did need body cams, right? And that's one of the things, like, I agree with people. Like, when they said, like, hey, the police need to be held accountable, we need to be able to see video evidence of this stuff happening, because all we had, like we were talking about the other day, cops, right? The only way you're hoping that they got video evidence is from Cops, the TV show, like a camera crew. It's like, no, somebody had the bright idea, body cams. Body cams have taken care of most incidents.
Yeah, that and dash cam have certainly gone a long way to
The
make.
only thing that they can't help is misinformation. And I've seen so much misinformation, and people think they know. They act like they were there during the shooting when it's like, you didn't even see the video. Like, anybody who could watch that video or said video of whatever interaction, you can't argue with video. Like the one crooked cop who shot the guy and tried to stage it like the guy was grabbing his taser in South Carolina, I believe it was. They, I mean, thank God they had cameras. I mean, it's there for the officer's protection, and it's also there for the law officer's accountability. And
Right.
I like that idea,
Right.
because honestly, as a security guard, there were times where I was so glad there was a camera there, because people will lie about you. They will say you did this and you
The
did
undefeated
that,
human
they're
race right there.
innocent. Oh yeah, man. If I had a nickel for every time somebody said that I profiled them or they're innocent or this and that, thank God there's cameras.
Now, if you had a gig, if there was any gig you could do, what would the gig be?
Are you talking any job or any security job?
Any
Like,
gig,
if I
any
could do
gig, any
security-
gig, any gig.
I'll be honest, man. I always kind of wanted to work. I always wanted to be an air marshal. Like, dream job, air marshal. Like, now that I've said
So
this
how?
on the
Okay,
radio, I
all
can't
right.
ever have that.
So, what would your plan be to become an air marshal?
Well, they have the air marshal training. If you're willing to forget life for a year and go over there to Texas for training, you could go to air marshal training.
So, what's stopping you from that? Do you
Well,
not have support?
The things that I love more than the dream is my family. I mean, I have support, but there's some things when you love it more. You love it more.
Okay.
Like, as much as I want to say, hey, I'm an air marshal and fly around, and I mean, it just seems cool.
I don't know if you would want to say that you're a flyer. I'm not sure you're even allowed, to say, hi, I'm Bob, the air marshal. You're not supposed to be known when you get on the airplane.
I've always loved flying, and
Right.
I like to do security, so it's like.
And it probably
combine
pays
both.
better than the gig you have now.
I know the benefits would probably be better, but the only thing that would get you is the holidays, and that's a big reason that I am the way I am now, because I've started working for the school system and everything. Holidays, you get really used to having a couple weeks off every holiday, and like it's hard for me.
Oh, so you softened. You're now a soft-boiled version of your former self.
Used to, you could call me the day before any day, like, hey, we need you right here. Now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I got my preferred dates. Let me check my schedule, and that's what happens when you got a family. You got to, hey, man, let me check my schedule first, and that's the way it should be. But being an air marshal, I'd never see my family. Like, there's a lot of people that drop their family to keep their dream job, or to go after their dream job, and more power to them, especially if they can make it work. But you have to look at what's attainable. And with how paranoid I am and the way I see crime and everything, I'll be honest. Like, hey, yeah, like I've seen some stuff, so you can't unsee it. So you want to be there in case if it happens around your area, or around where you're at, or if it affects you. So it's like I don't want to be away from my family. Like, I mean, there's some things, like if somebody gave you a great opportunity, you'd have to look at all of what it has to offer, and all of that it will cost. Like, I'd love to be an air marshal, but at the same time, I'd never see my family, really. I mean, I'm sure I would, but my wife would be happy.
Have you spoken with or interviewed other air marshals?
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
So what you may want to do to get an actual.
I mean, they look miserable. Like they say.
Well, they're not supposed to look happy. They're supposed to look like other flyers on the airplane, and most other flyers on the airplane are not happy. Right? I mean, that's part. I bet that's part of the training. I bet that's part of the training. You're supposed to look angry when you're carrying a 9mm.
Mirror the place. Like if they're all impatient and angry, you be impatient and angry.
That was what I was told when I went to New York and had to get on the subway, and I was like, I've never been on the subway. I'm terrified of New York because of all the movies and the media, etc.
The crime and
And the guy said it's not a problem. And when you get on the subway, take a seat, stare at your shoes, and look as mad as you can. And nobody will mess with you, because everybody gets on the tram, on the subway, staring at their shoes, just madder than hell. And it works. It's like it's one of the most beautiful.
Don't look approachable.
Right. It's like the best car. The best jacket or aura that just says, "Please, just leave me alone." It's beautiful, and it worked. It was great. I was there for a week and was never robbed, shot, stabbed, molested. But I did have fun.
I do believe a lot of it does have to do with how you carry yourself, because I've been to some places, and they could smell weakness. They could smell that, and if you
they smell a mark. Because if you come in all like bubbly and happy, and the world is no problem, and I have credit cards and things like that.
You learn a lot about it when you're younger. If you're a smoker, especially when I was in Job Corps, it starts with cigarettes. People come up to you, hey man, you got a square. Hey man, you got a cigarette, and that's where it starts. And you got to tell them no. And when you tell them no, yeah, they may roll their eyes and walk off, but they're immediately going to go over to somebody else and be like, hey, man, can I have a cigarette? And if that person gives them a cigarette, they'll come back to that person every hour.
And you're free.
Every 2 hours. Oh, yeah. And the person will just give them a cigarette. Give them it. Hey, even the ones, and you could tell, some of them think like, oh, I want to look like I have everything going in my life and like I am rich, Here you go. Here's a cigarette. It's nothing for me. It's nothing for me, man. After 3 or 4 days of that person's sitting there like, hey, man, I don't have any cigarettes. You got any money you could give me for some more cigarettes? Like, you see how people just kind of give away their stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
To make other people happy, to appease other people, and that's what I mean, I hate to say it, but politically, that's what I see a lot of people are trying to appease other people.
Yeah, it's all about the appearance.
Even to the point where we're appeasing Russia and everything. everything. Like in China, it's like some of these people do not deserve appeasement. They deserve something else.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was. I think that plays to Donaldson's point on the pro wrestling side of this. That it's all about the appearance, right? It's all about the rhetoric and the yelling and the, oh, we're gonna rumble. But when it comes down to it, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I have to go to Cancun that weekend. I'm sorry, you don't have power. Right? I mean, that's who we are. That's how we treat each other. That's our leaders and their constituents in a nutshell. The separation. Anyway, so before we get into that and we start losing hemorrhaging viewers, we now need to address the second part of this statement from your mom. Yes?
I guess so.
Okay, so Mel Gibson Day. Of all the people to declare a day for in Southport, I get, well, maybe it's because I'm not a woman or, attracted to Mel Gibson. I don't think he's...
Well, Mel Gibson, I mean, hey, man, I'm not into guys either, but, from if
why not
if
Angelina Jolie?
He was in what women want, right?
I guess, I don't know.
And it's pretty much a movie where he walks around and he could tell what the women are thinking. Like when they think something about him, like he could
that sounds really woke.
Oh yeah, and so he's walking around, a woman looks at him and her thoughts say like, oh, he's got a nice butt and stuff, right? And he could tell what women want. And for him to land that role, like you have to. A lot of people have to think you're attractive for you to land that role, right? They couldn't put like Joe Pesci in that, or like what was it, Jason Alexander from Seinfeld? Like they couldn't do that with them, so they had to find somebody else.
Or Justin
Long.
Sorry,
but I mean
Or who was the dude that ran the command center in Die Hard? Live Free or Die Hard. The corpulent dude in the basement, and he's like, why did you bring a cop into the command center?
Kevin Smith.
And the dude, that guy. Yeah, you would have had him. That would have been funny to have that dude do that film.
Kevin Smith, I think he was doing like Clerks and stuff around that time.
I think he would have been great at that flick because he would have turned it into something like enjoyable and I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some women that probably think Silent Bob is, cute and kind of like a bearded fat guy way, and they're like, oh, look at those chubby cheeks. Oh, I love his little hair, the way it curls back there, but of course they're gonna go with Mel Gibson. Plus, it's the spending money thing, right? Some people just spend money.
All right, what are you thinking? That Mel Gibson sells more lunch boxes? Or
not since his angry rant.
Which I still say pales in comparison to that Hasselhoff video. That Hasselhoff video makes me feel so much better about myself.
I don't know. I don't care what anybody says. We've all had a Hasselhoff day. I've had a Hasselhoff day.
Yeah, but I didn't terrify my child doing it.
Yeah, not in front of my daughter. No, God, no. Like, no, not in front of your child, especially if you're rich.
Because I mean, if it's another drunk guy videotaping
to carry her away, while you're eating a burger drunk on the floor.
Right. Right. I mean, if it's a fellow drunk guy who's with me going, I can't believe this guy's that drunk. That's a different thing. But when it's your daughter going, you're scaring me, it's like, okay.
I mean, it's a shame to have somebody see me eating Hardee's as it is. Like, I can't stand Hardee's, man. It would be only so much better if he had Burger King. Like, it wouldn't be such a big deal if he was eating Burger King. Like, if you change that burger with a rodeo burger, the daughter probably would have been like, hey, Dad, how's it going?
Or a Red Robin or something.
Yeah, a Red Robin. Yeah, he'd hold his pinky up as, he's curling in the fetal position on the floor by the front door. I mean, was it?
Right. I mean, at that point, I would have probably called the therapist. I think he's regressing.
Anybody who's heard the Mel Gibson rant, yeah, he goes off the deep end. He drops ethnic slurs. He calls implants foreign bodies and everything. And I can't hate on Mel Gibson because, hey, he did Passion of the Christ. He's a Christian. But, I mean, he has been tied to some anti-Semitic stuff in the past a little bit. Like, the guy definitely, He had his biases, but I think he's had redemption. And it's like, do you really let somebody's past,
That
especially
does
when
seem
people
to be
like
a
Danny
very
Glover.
subjective case-by-case situation.
Well, Danny Glover, Whoopi Goldberg, all these other people, of color that came
Kathy
out.
Griffin, how are they going to overcome what they did, right?
Oh yeah, look at Joy Behar and those cackling women up on the View. I can't
Now
stand
keep
them.
in mind that
She
we do
was
the same thing.
blackface,
We do the
and they
same
sit
thing
right beside her.
right, and we do this with like prisoners. So when they come out of prison and we're trying to reintegrate them in life, they are going to carry that past for the rest of their lives. But if you're cute, maybe you're beautiful, you can get away with pretty much anything by the end of the next week. I mean, that's how Paris Hilton pretty much made her living. I mean, I might have missed something. Maybe there's a memo out there I didn't read, but am I wrong? I mean, she has no marketable skills. She has no talent. The only thing she is a good-looking drunk chick that likes to fall down and, completely embarrass
With a
you.
trust fund,
Right.
With a trust fund that would supply the rest
She's
of our
never
families
gonna
and
stress.
generations for years.
She is never going to stress. She's never going to stress
she
rent,
should never have to
bills.
stretch.
Never. I mean, every day can be a shopping extravaganza. Healthcare,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
we'll never know.
And then throw her with that
But we continue to support things like
disgusting
that.
cretin
Right.
of Nicole Ricci, and how she embarrassed her father. I mean, I would
that
have
whole
canceled
Tekashi
that credit card
6ix9ine.
so fast.
Oh yeah.
I would
have been like, lady, you're gonna be hosting at the Golden Corral before long. You know what I'm saying? You'd be the waitress at the. Yeah, no, we're not having that.
I mean, even considering they did their little movie show, right, where they went around spending all their money, being harlots, and then to put those little dogs through that suffering. They had the little dogs, and they carried those poor little dogs around. It's like, not why you want to drag the poor animals into it. They didn't do anything wrong. Poor creatures.
Yeah.
But I digress. We don't have to worry about people like that around here.
No, it doesn't happen.
Nobody's got that much money around here.
It's not really an issue. I mean, all the money we have is going into stack-a-shacks.
In storage buildings.
Oh yeah. And well.
Oh yeah.
And of course you have to service those with Dollar Generals. There's a Dollar General on Water Street in the building of those $1 million condos that had to be closed off because of mold. I don't know if you've been following
let's
that.
just say it. Dollar General, hey, it's good. I can't say anything. I'm a thrifty man, but at the same time, let's be honest, it's for people that are too cheap or lazy or don't want to spend the time to go to Walmart.
Well, yeah,
I understand because it's right down the street from some people. So it's like,
right,
hey,
it's a
if it's right down the street from you,
it's a blend between
okay.
Walmart and a gas station convenience store.
But where I'm at, it's like an equal drive between Walmart and a Dollar General. I'm going to go to Walmart. Dollar General, I go in there, man, the aisles are so small, like they're barely even wheelchair accessible. You go down there and you look down the hallways and corridors and down every aisle, and you're lucky if you don't see somebody just kind of looking at you like Michael Myers. Just kind of creepy. And
I get that.
And then there's actually the customers. Like that I'm talking about the employees. Then the customers come in there and it's like, oh my God, they go up to the front and they're like, hey, they ask for like all types of crazy stuff. Like, do you guys have this? Do you guys have that? I mean, I always go in there and they're hassling one of the workers there, like, hey, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? Do you have that? It's like, man, if you're that specific, go to Walmart. I go straight to Walmart. People can hate on me for going to Walmart. I
go there for my phone card. That's about it. That's about it. Well, I tell you what, just for fun, since we are right around the bottom of the hour, We're going to take a news and commercial break, and we'll be right back. On the Asylum on the Big Talker Online. Don't
Dollar
go anywhere.
General's got good candy and sodas, though. Give them that.
Man, they need to pay for this, though.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A Brunswick County man is charged with extortion after making threats to the Ocean Isle Beach police chief and the Brunswick County sheriff. According to warrants, John Nathan Tabor allegedly threatened two men to give him immunity or he would release false information. The threats reportedly happened to Ocean Isle Beach Police Chief Ken Bellamy from November 10th through Tuesday. The warrant also says Brunswick County Sheriff John Ingram was also threatened on Tuesday. Tabor has been arrested and is being held in the Brunswick County Jail. The Temple of Israel is one of the most recognizable buildings in downtown Wilmington, and it needs your help. The synagogue has stood for a century and a half and needs $500,000 for its restoration. The building needs repairs due to water damage and deterioration. The temple is the oldest Jewish house of worship in continuous use in the state, but it has been closed for worship and other events since last year. Fundraising began 2 months ago. So far, $200,000 have been donated or pledged towards the $500,000 goal. According to a new report, North Carolina is among 10 states in the country seeing the highest jump in rental rates. Rent.com is reporting the average rent for one bedroom in North Carolina is $1,378. That's up nearly 22% from last year. The increase is 3 times the national rate of inflation, which is at a near 40-year high. Some North Carolina realtors are recommending buying rather than renting since interest rates remain low. And today is Wright Brothers Day, which celebrates 118 years since the two brothers made history with their airplane at Kitty Hawk. In 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright launched that first flight from a sand dune covering 120 feet in 12 seconds. The country has been marking the day officially since 1963. President Joe Biden has proclaimed today Wright Brothers Day. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Helen Holt with your WWAY Storm Track 3 AccuWeather forecast. We'll see a mixture of sunshine and cloudiness today, unseasonably warm again with high temperatures in the mid to upper 70s inland with lower 70s along the beaches. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy skies, mild low temperatures in the upper 50s to near 60. Saturday, partly sunny and unseasonably warm, highs in the upper 70s inland to the low 70s along the Atlantic coastline. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
If you want to talk about culture and politics without all the caterwauling, then you'll love Heard Tell Radio with me, your host, Andrew Donaldson, every weekday morning, 6 a.m. with a replay at 3 p.m. right here on the Big Talker. Catch it on the Listen Live tab on the app or watch on the Facebook page.
And here we are back on the Asylum on the Big Talker Online. Having as much fun as you can imagine on a Friday about, 2 weeks before? Not even 2 weeks before Christmas. 1 week, 1 day before Christmas.
Yes, Clock is counting down.
We even have our little cactus Christmas tree on our live stream there. That's like the entire extent. No, we do have a Christmas tree in the house. But as far as
But
like
you
the
have a
garage of
Christmas
my house,
cactus
that's all the
in the
space I have.
studio.
That's it. That's the whole shebang right there.
I only have 4 or 5 Christmas trees in the house, I think now.
Oh yeah,
I think it's Christmas here.
You're
I think it's
what do they call it? When a guy just doesn't quite reach his potential by any means, not lazy, just.
Oh yes. Speak more of my character on Christmas, please.
I'm trying to, where you
Slothful. I'm so slothful.
Yeah, that must be it. Slothful. I guess that's the closest one. Because a friend of mine, you have 7 Christmas trees, right? Is that what you said?
Oh no, well 5. I'll be modest.
Okay,
5.
she has 7 in her living room. She has 4 in her kitchen.
One of those people that probably called Fox like, "Hey, what are you doing with that old Christmas tree?"
Dude, she has, seriously, she has trees for Halloween. She has trees for Valentine's. She has trees for, I think she has a tree for President's Day. So the tree thing is there's always going to be some decorated tree for whatever holiday of the month, right? But on Christmas, it's like the whole place explodes with candy cane lane. There's just every kind of adaptation of a fir tree you can imagine in artificial form is in that house. And they're all decorated uniquely, and it's, some of them are overwhelming, right? Like the really big tree is just its own art. It really does require its own galaxy. It's just that
I don't know.
intense.
I got a friend that, he says he has a Joe Biden tree because he keeps it in a box and it never comes out. But it's there. Technically, it's there. So he could say he has a Christmas tree. Me, on the other hand, every year it seems like we're inheriting somebody else's Christmas tree. Like somebody gives up on the spirit and they're like, I can't take it anymore. And they go Grinch, they go Scrooge, and it's like, well, what are you doing with the Christmas tree? I don't want the Christmas tree anymore. I give up on Christmas. Okay, hey. Let's be right. Let's not be. Don't rush. Don't rush. How about you let me hold on to the Christmas tree and you think this over? And I just kind of take care of the Christmas tree, almost like a dog sitter would or something. Like, hey, I'll take care of your Christmas tree. I'll make sure it's working good. And if you want your Christmas tree back, you call me. And they never want the Christmas tree back. And then the next year they get desperate. They're like, oh God, I need a Christmas tree. I need to buy a real Christmas tree. And it's like, hey, I still got your fake one. Nope, they're already in the buying a real Christmas tree phase.
Yeah. So I have to. One of the events in my childhood that ruined Christmas for me was when my dad tried to help make Christmas happen. So we had a couple of other people from the church, another father, I believe, my dad, my brother, another cat, those 2 guys with their sons, and my dad and some alcohol, I guess. Because somehow we got lost looking for the perfect Christmas tree. And the next day at school, this is how it all came about, how it became more than it. So we're lost, and it's now, midnight, and it's now freezing cold because we're way up in the Sandia Mountains and the Rocky Mountains in New Mexico looking for this perfect tree. We found the perfect tree. We can't cut down the perfect tree. And it's getting cold, so we're taking dead branches, and we're taking the math homework that I had brought with me. I swear to you, I had my math homework with me, and we ended up burning my math homework to start the fire to keep us warm while my brother and someone else, I think it was the father of another boy, went off in search of help, which is really funny that within, I don't know, half a mile, they walked over this one little ridge, which the very ridge we were looking at, and there's a highway. So I get to school the next day, and I, where's your homework? I burned it to stay alive last night. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. No, really. Man. Right. So I get sent to the
Oh,
principal's
man.
office, right? So they call my mom. My mom comes into the office and she's, what happened to his math homework? Well, they had to burn it to stay alive, and I'm really glad that he's alive, because I was really worried, and and the principal's office the principal guy just turns like absolutely white because everybody has been yelling at me and completely writing me about this homework that I had to burn. And then they asked me, "Did you do the homework?" And I said, "Most of it." Right? I wasn't gonna lie at that point. It's like you can go through the ashes and probably find where, the graphite didn't make it to the end of the
Making you think
page.
they're going to do that. They're going to call in a forensic.
Right. And my mom's like, yeah, I saw him I saw him working on it. So I know he was working on it. But the fact that we had to burn it to, stay alive in the frozen mountains of New Mexico is a little more, to me, important than turning in the assignment. I mean, can he do it again? And at that point, they're like, yeah, he can do it again. We'll let him,
The correct thing for you to do was freeze to death, and then we find your math homework on your frozen body, and we bring it into class.
And I
Then
still
and
only get a
then will you
75
be
because I didn't.
absolved.
Yeah, and only a 75% because I didn't finish it. I had succumbed to the environment before I could finish my precious homework.
Oh, man.
That's our education system right there. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to, that was funny. That was really funny. Okay, so we're totally blowing off all of our breaks, and I need to change that. We'll be right back.
Ooh. How you doing, baby? No, not you.
Keeping Wilmington informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Well, hey, y'all, it's Holly Brewer
and Amy Ludwig and Kristen Ludwig
from Just Think, the podcast. The podcast where we don't want to tell you what to think, we just challenge you to do it. We're happy to have some of our episodes featured right here on 106.7 The Big Talker on Saturdays at 11 a.m. So we hope you join us in the conversation and most importantly, just think.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's a tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A Brunswick County man is charged with extortion after making threats to the Ocean Isle Beach police chief and the Brunswick County sheriff. According to warrants, John Nathan Tabor allegedly threatened two men to give him immunity or he would release false information. The threats reportedly happened to Ocean Isle Beach Police Chief Ken Bellamy from November 10th through Tuesday. The warrant also says Brunswick County Sheriff John Ingram was also threatened on Tuesday. Tabor has been arrested and is being held in the Brunswick County Jail. The Temple of Israel is one of the most recognizable buildings in downtown Wilmington, and it needs your help. The synagogue has stood for a century and a half and needs $500,000 for its restoration. The building needs repairs due to water damage and deterioration. The temple is the oldest Jewish house of worship in continuous use in the state, but it has been closed for worship and other events since last year. Fundraising began 2 months ago. So far, $200,000 have been donated or pledged towards the $500,000 goal. According to a new report, North Carolina is among 10 states in the country seeing the highest jump in rental rates. Rent.com is reporting the average rent for one bedroom in North Carolina is $1,378. That's up nearly 22% from last year. The increase is 3 times the national rate of inflation, which is at a near 40-year high. Some North Carolina realtors are recommending buying rather than renting since interest rates remain low. And today is Wright Brothers Day, which celebrates 118 years since the two brothers made history with their airplane at Kitty Hawk. In 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright launched that first flight from a sand dune covering 120 feet in 12 seconds. The country has been marking the day officially since 1963. President Joe Biden has proclaimed today Wright Brothers Day. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Helen Holt with your WWAY Storm Track 3 AccuWeather forecast. We'll see a mixture of sunshine and cloudiness today, unseasonably warm again with high temperatures in the mid to upper 70s inland with lower 70s along the beaches. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy skies, mild low temperatures in the upper 50s to near 60. Saturday, partly sunny and unseasonably warm, highs in the upper 70s inland to the low 70s along the Atlantic coastline. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Listen to Tom Goolsby on The Chad Adams Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
I don't get in trouble.
We do? Who? I can't wait to hear from them.
He's got lawyers that call.
The smart people right here on the Big Talker Online. Andrew Donaldson from ordinary-times.com, author, writer, producer, director of Heard Tell, heard directly before this program at 6 o'clock in the morning, except this morning when I really screwed something up. But it'll replay at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The video ran perfectly. Andrew Donaldson has been doing a phenomenal job in keeping us informed and keeping the conversation in an adult format. And he joins us now live from the bunker. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. I love how you prove to the folks that you have good music like Staying Alive, and you kill that and go to that instead of fall rocky music. So just
well, it's listed as Andrew Donaldson intro music. So
this is how I'm treated by folks that I spend a lot of time trying to help. Which is apropos for most of my life. So it's fitting.
Yeah. You're gonna get a better Christmas from your daughter than you will from the Big Talker. I guarantee you that.
A low bar, but you cleared it.
Yes, I did. I got a nickel for you. It's going to cost more to mail it than it is worth, so, I'll wait till you're in town.
You stepped over the broom laying on the ground and called it crossing the line, so good for you.
Yep.
Great job.
No, I hopscotched that thing, man. I did it with some pizzazz, with some...
Man, your age and condition probably shouldn't be hopping on anything, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, hop on pop, right?
Hop on pop.
It's Friday, man.
A friend of mine, true story. A friend of mine, we were doing a leadership course, and part of the leadership course is you had to do speeches, and you didn't just get up and speech. You actually had to lay out the speech and you had to have a premise, and you had to have so many points to do. He actually did a premise where every single Dr. Seuss rhyme scheme is basically could be coded for advocating for drug use, and one of them was hop on pop. And he went through hop on pop line by line on how that was basically about getting high, and it works. Like every single Dr. Seuss poem, you can make it about drug use with no problems whatsoever. So he did this whole thing on hop on pop, and he changed it to, I don't remember all the rhyme scheme to hop on pop, but basically it turned into a story of him trying to get to 7-Eleven because he had the munchies. But it was quite brilliant. So hop on pop, first thing I thought of.
I need to read.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Doing good.
It's been an interesting morning. We were discussing the Biden has declared yesterday, or I got to bring that news back up.
Collect your thoughts.
Today, yes, today has been declared, or whatever, is Wright Brothers Day, as declared by President Joe Biden, proclaimed today, Wright Brothers Day.
I am for it, and can I go on my brief rant since this does emanate from
I had my own.
From the great state of North Carolina. I absolutely abhor the First and Freedom license plates. I think they should be banned. I think everybody should get rid of them. It's first in flight, and if another state gets upset, screw them. I don't. I love the first in flight license plate, the First and Freedom one, and I love freedom.
Sea turtles.
I get a nice check from the government for serving freedom once a month. I'm all for freedom. The First and Freedom license plates, I just cannot stand them. It's just my little thing that bugs me that nobody else cares about.
What about it specifically? I need this unpacked.
Because it was the alternate to the First in Flight. Because I forget. I'll have to look it up. But some other state complained that they weren't First in Flight or something. So it's like, oh, okay, let's not do First in Flight. It's like, just do First in Flight. You have.
Well, what was the first signature on the Declaration?
I should know this, but I forget it off the top of my head, so help me with it.
Isn't it John?
No, that John Hancock's was the biggest.
The biggest, the last one at the bottom, right?
I don't remember if he was last or not. I apologize. I should know this off the top of my head. Well, he wrote it big, and then the flourish was, I'm going to make it so that they can see my name, and because he was a bit of a poser, so he was like, I want the king to be able to read it without his spectacles on. So he wrote it. He had to just Bigfoot everybody. Because if you look, what's funny about it is if you look at the actual Declaration, it's all in nice, neat line. Remember, they're handwriting this thing, and they wrote copies of it. So they wrote there's
by
12 or 13 of them by hand. So everybody's having to write this thing so they're having to write their names, not only write their names, but they got to write it in the same place on each document over and over and over again. So it was really kind of a jerk move. Because now everybody else is like, what the crap, John? So there's some of that involved in it too, but it makes a good story, so we just roll with it. But all part of the magic that makes up America. So
okay, so the First in Freedom isn't really offensive on the term of being First in Freedom.
No, I'm all for freedom. I'm not for let's get rid of First in Flight, which is something that the state of North Carolina should be very proud of, even though it was a geographical accident, because they just needed an area with a certain kind of wind and a certain kind of, the beach just,
it wasn't there because of the beauty, even though it is beautiful. They chose that area.
These were smart dudes. They needed the wind. They needed everything
working
just
for them.
So for these bicycle dudes from Ohio to make flight happen.
Pikeville, Ohio.
If I were going to do something that could result in major bodily harm or death, I'd want to choose at least a scenic place.
So your last glimpse of life is somebody standing over you in a beautiful area. Are you okay?
Oh, yeah.
How's my
I
bike?
hate for it to be like Durham or something.
But if you go back and read their notes and that they weren't actually supposed to fly it. The day that they did it, they weren't actually supposed to fly it. They were still just testing it out. So they weren't completely sure that was going to be it. The whole story of it is just amazing. Go back and read through it. They thought it was just going to be a dry run where it went down there because they had like a rail launch type system.
Right.
They were just going to put it down the rail and then it would stop in the sand like it done the first couple of times, and that was going to be it. But they got it up. The wind was just right and everything worked out just right. The motors they are using would not turn this dancing Santa in your Christmas displays. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It was basically a kite. I mean, the motor was secondary, really, because it was all aerodynamics and all. It's
the engine was
it's an amazing thing they did. No, if you go and look at the models, it was engine powered to make it technically powered flight, but it's really a marvel of understanding aerodynamics and lift thrust ratio and just knowing how, unlike Langley, who was just trying to mechanically power his way into the air, which was their competitor, and the government backed one, by the way. There's a story for government funding. He was just going raw power trying to get in the air, and they went the other way and said, no, we want to get it in the air, and then we're going to use the power for the last 3%. We need to make it work. And that's the way they approached it. And it worked.
Just because the goal was to get in the air.
Wasn't there. The engine technology was not there to have a small light. No. Aircraft engine has to be light, and there just was no way to have.
And they were using like a small motorcycle engine, right?
No, that's why you look at Langley's designs. They had like 6 engines because they just couldn't get enough. You know, even the World War One aircraft that were fighters and stuff, they had no horsepower because you could only get so. Because back then the engine design was you just line up cylinders, and if you need more horsepower, you add another cylinder. Well, that's not going to work on an aircraft because it's too freaking heavy. So they were limited on how much. You know, those World War One fighters are like 125 horsepower.
Yeah, and you got more than that in your
you're
wood
talking
chipper.
riding mower kind of stuff, and they're flying around and shooting at each other. You want to talk about another breed of men?
And the airplanes themselves were made out of like balsa wood.
It was wood and fabric, and we're going to go up to 6,000 feet and shoot machine guns at each other, which, by the way, are going through propellers that aren't synchronized, so it may or may not shoot off your own propeller.
Well, it did not take them long to synchronize. I will say that.
They were these
like
folks
within the
were
year and a half.
courageous on a whole other level. Like
y'all think about that innovation next time you bite into a Red Baron pizza. Think
Hey,
about
all
the things
great
that Baron von Richthofen had to go through there.
Look, Snoopy did not go up and do battle with him on Christmas for us to not recognize the great advancements in aviation. But no, when you think about what the pioneers in aviation, like how brave they had to be, it's like, I'm going to take this ball of string and go in the sky with it. Like,
So
what?
yeah, it's kind of like going back to the Paleo period where some guy decides to walk up to a cow and just start milking it. I mean, that takes a whole.
Well, I write about food a lot. I'm always fascinated with how food comes about. Like I've wrote about.
Right. Yeah.
I've wrote pieces on like grilled cheese and tomato soup. Do you realize that's mostly due to the government? Why we pair those two foods together?
Because they could package them and send them off like really cheap.
Well, no,
I remember the government cheese blocks.
But why did they get that? Like how John Kraft came up with, shelf-stable cheese, and how basically all the World War One guys went off and they were served, especially the Navy guys. They got served a lot of grilled cheese and tomato soup because you could feed a bunch of people in a hurry.
Yep.
They came home with it, and then when the Depression happened, because there was no such thing as school lunches until the Depression on a wide scale. Now all of a sudden the government's having to feed all these kids at school. They needed it, so they started doing grilled cheese and tomato soup because it was the only thing you could standardize across the entire country. Because
Quickly.
there's no supply chain like there is now. So
Right.
they say, all right, because when they gave them the money for school, remember they don't have cafeterias. There's no kitchens. They're like, how do you do this? Like, oh well, give them grilled cheese. So now all of a sudden you have a whole generation that grew up eating grilled cheese and tomato soup.
And it works.
Yeah, and I actually titled the piece, mandated. Like, I put mandated right in the title because it really was mandated. You don't think about something simple that we do all the time, that there's a backstory of how that happened.
Right.
John Kraft, who was a Canadian, by the way, goes to Chicago, and he's selling cheese out of a wagon, like literally going store to store in a wagon trying to sell cheese, because the way cheese was, here's how you bought cheese. You bought the wheel, and then they'd carve it off and serve it to you, but the problem is most of the wheel would go bad before they sold it all, and they were losing their money, so a lot of people just quit selling cheese. And he figured out how to pasteurize it and make it shelf stable, and then he invented the real thing that changed everything, which was the individual slice that fit on a piece of bread. Oh my!
Suddenly you can almost, like shuffling cards, make sandwiches.
Yeah, and now you have the perfect grilled cheese because he invented a cheese specifically for a bread, specifically for one sandwich, and it made him rich.
Like
and then he
Pool Noodle guy.
mastered a lot of other things.
Kraft
like,
singles, yeah.
He mastered what we would now call marketing. Like he went door to door to these shops, and he built a business network to supply these guys, and he built a supply chain from the ground up, from the factory to his own R&D development. Go watch History Channel has a great series on food. Go watch Hershey, the one on the Hershey chocolate factory.
Okay, I saw the one on Ray Kroc.
Like they had a riot in the factory that people actually died in. Like it's crazy. Ray Kroc's another one. McDonald's. Do you understand how McDonald's functioned? It wasn't. They had it down so tight. They were taking the Model T production line, how to make like a production line, and we're going to put it in a restaurant so we can serve food faster.
Yep.
That's what made McDonald's.
Yep.
Do you realize the entire concept of the hamburger bun came from the dude that started White Castle? He had to invent the hamburger bun because he didn't have anything to serve hamburger on. He invented the hamburger bun so that he could make White Castle. Like just little stuff that we take for granted every day has this amazing backstory. And then I'm always like, okay, who's the first guy that figured out foie gras?
Right.
Like
That
we
had
were so
that had to
desperate
be
they're
that
like,
had to
"I'm
be an
gonna eat
accident.
duck- I'm
That-
going to eat goose liver today."
No, well, that's the stuff that's the stuff that's encapsulated in its own goose fat, right?
It's in its own fat. It's basically
hermetically sealed, so
Yes.
frog raw can last for thousands of years. I think
it's
it was an
considered
accident.
a delicacy, but it's also an acquired taste, and there's some ethical treatment of animal issues involved there. So some folks are very against it, but it's just stuff like that. Like who figured out butchering, and who figured out agriculture?
Oh heck yeah! The British, didn't they even eat like mummies? They ate mummies at some point. Like that was considered a delicacy.
I did a piece on beef Wellington, which is kind of considered one of the pinnacle. Like if you're going big time food, beef Wellington's way up there. So for people that don't know, beef Wellington, that's Gordon Ramsay's signature dish. This is considered one of the great dishes in the world. It's a fillet of beef, perfectly cooked. They cover it in deshell, which is ground up, cooked up mushrooms. It's wrapped in that, and then it's wrapped in a pastry and cooked. And it's really hard to make. You got to be excellent to make it because there's a multi-layered process to it. But beef Wellington came from a guy who was actually named the Earl of Sandwich. I'm not making this up. So we got sandwiches as we know them was stolen from a guy named excuse me, I'm crossing two things up. Let me back up. The Earl of Sandwich didn't actually make sandwiches, but they called him that because he was having a 2-day going poker game and been on a 20-hour bender, and he wanted something to eat, and his cook brought it up. Now, was that the first sandwich ever? No, of course not, because every culture in the world has a sandwich or a dumpling, or you have bao buns that are thousands of years old. Every culture has sandwiches. But he was the one because he was the Earl of Sandwich, the place, not the sandwich. He ate it, and now it's got a story. Now it's got branding, so everybody calls it a sandwich. And that's why people in the English-speaking world call it a sandwich, is because of that story. Whether it's true or not, the gambling part's undoubtedly true because he died young and broke. But we call it the Earl Sandwich for that. So like beef Wellington, well, is it really named after the Duke of Wellington from Napoleon fame of beating Napoleon? Well, not really. The dish existed before that, but it got branded that. And the way I took it when I wrote it, because I'm a good little hillbilly boy from West Virginia, I said, corn dog, beef Wellington on a stick.
Nice.
And people reacted to it, and a lot of people read it. But it's just stories like that in our food tell us all kinds of great things about us. So.
And what we consider to be good and gross, et cetera, et cetera. And we will cover. Sorry, I was going to say we need to do some stuff, and then we can discuss more food when we come back on the Big Talker Online with the Asylum in the Morning.
Love this song. Turn it up.
Some whiskey in your water, sugar in your tea. What's all this crazy question?
It almost sounds like a
This is the craziest party
Dr. Zeus book.
ever be. Don't try them lights.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A Brunswick County man is charged with extortion after making threats to the Ocean Isle Beach police chief and the Brunswick County sheriff. According to warrants, John Nathan Tabor allegedly threatened two men to give him immunity or he would release false information. The threats reportedly happened to Ocean Isle Beach Police Chief Ken Bellamy from November 10th through Tuesday. The warrant also says Brunswick County Sheriff John Ingram was also threatened on Tuesday. Tabor has been arrested and is being held in the Brunswick County Jail. The Temple of Israel is one of the most recognizable buildings in downtown Wilmington, and it needs your help. The synagogue has stood for a century and a half and needs $500,000 for its restoration. The building needs repairs due to water damage and deterioration. The temple is the oldest Jewish house of worship in continuous use in the state, but it has been closed for worship and other events since last year. Fundraising began 2 months ago. So far, $200,000 have been donated or pledged towards the $500,000 goal. According to a new report, North Carolina is among 10 states in the country seeing the highest jump in rental rates. Rent.com is reporting the average rent for one bedroom in North Carolina is $1,378. That's up nearly 22% from last year. The increase is 3 times the national rate of inflation, which is at a near 40-year high. Some North Carolina realtors are recommending buying rather than renting since interest rates remain low. And today is Wright Brothers Day, which celebrates 118 years since the two brothers made history with their airplane at Kitty Hawk. In 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright launched that first flight from a sand dune covering 120 feet in 12 seconds. The country has been marking the day officially since 1963. President Joe Biden has proclaimed today Wright Brothers Day. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Helen Holt with your WWAY Storm Track 3 AccuWeather forecast. We'll see a mixture of sunshine and cloudiness today, unseasonably warm again with high temperatures in the mid to upper 70s inland with lower 70s along the beaches. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy skies, mild low temperatures in the upper 50s to near 60. Saturday, partly sunny and unseasonably warm, highs in the upper 70s inland to the low 70s along the Atlantic coastline. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
If you want to talk about culture and politics without all the caterwauling, then you'll love Hertel Radio with me, your host, Andrew Donaldson, every weekday morning, 6 a.m. with a replay at 3 p.m. right here on the Big Talker. Catch it on the Listen Live tab on the app or watch on the Facebook page.
I gotta get this fixed. How's that for some rhythm? I love this track.
I do too.
I mean, it's got such an angry undertone to it, but it's just so boppy. I don't know. I don't.
Diddy could bust out some good sample riffs. You got to give the guy credit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's when they open their mouth and start saying stupid stuff that I start getting, like, wow.
I mean, he couldn't rap for nothing, but he could put together a track.
I'm glad I didn't have to say it. Because I'm not in the genre enough to judge it. But, all right, so...
Big Daddy Kane raps better when he's unconscious than Diddy ever dreamed of on his best day. Send tweet.
So, yeah, that's why we're on here. Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter, by the way. So, at Andrew Donaldson, or is it 4 for the Fire on Twitch or
I
Twitter?
forget what track it was. It's one of the major hits. What was it? What was the one? More Money, More Problems. I think it's the second or the third verse where you can literally tell, if you've ever done audio at all, that he just repeats himself because he had to fill 2.5 seconds.
Kind of like a studio.
Like he does the verse and it stops, and then he just goes, yeah, and repeats it again, and you're just like, okay, you were just filling the track. You could just tell.
Yeah,
just
filler material.
It, like, dude, really? Like, we all do it, but try to,
Yeah, that's been a staple of albums.
Hide it a little. But he literally, just went, he said his verse, and he went, yeah. And then there was a little beat, and it was like, yeah, and he said it again. I was like, oh, come on, man.
Come on, man.
I mean, he's a lot richer than me, so who am I? But he just every now and then he'd do something like that, and you're just like, come on, man, a little effort. Like, seriously.
We can do better than that on our slow day.
But again, to be fair to him, though, he was the sidekick to Biggie, even though he was doing the production stuff and the business stuff, I understand all that. I'm just talking musically. Musically, I don't think he ever wanted to be more than the sidekick musically, because he wanted to be a businessman and all that. And then Biggie died. I think he felt like he had to kind of carry the torch for a while, and it pushed him outside of what he really wanted to do. So to be fair to him, I understand the stuff he did in that era, whereas he was, wanting to just produce and other things. But
That
anyway.
makes sense. Now,
Oh, by the way, that brings me to one of my favorite YouTube clips. Go on YouTube. There is an In Living Color segment.
from the show?
Yeah, on the show. Hold on one second. I want to make sure I tell you this because I'm such a big In Living Color fan. So Heavy D and the Boys is performing on In Living Color, and there is this epic video, because not what's going on in the video, but because who's involved. But Heavy D and the Boys is performing, and there's all the people, they have the cast and crew, and all these people stand behind them when they perform. It's 90s, TV, and that's just how they did it. In this one performance of Heavy D and the Boys, and Heavy D did the intro music for the show also, right? The late Heavy D, the late great Heavy D.
Right.
Him and Heavy D and the Boys are performing, and there's all these people in the background, and there's a guy that is doing kind of the background dancing and rapping with Heavy D and the Boys, and it's a yet unknown Tupac Shakur.
Wow.
Because he was the biggest Heavy D fan ever. He loved Heavy D. They were buddies. He looked up to him. But it's so funny because the camera operator, Pac just keeps mugging for the camera, and the camera operator keeps trying to get it off him and back on Heavy D because nobody knows who this guy is yet. And he just keeps getting in the shot, and they keep moving the camera back. Like, you can just tell, anybody that's done a little bit of TV, or if you just watch, like, it's not smooth cuts. Like, they're jerking the camera. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. There's some ego dodging going on.
They're trying to get this guy off the camera, but he's so good at what he's doing, and he's so magnetic to the TV camera, they can't help it. They keep going to him, and they keep cutting away, and he keeps coming back. It's Tupac Shakur. But in that clip, standing in the background is Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever you want to call him, Biggie standing in the background. All those guys of that whole 90s rap scene that blew up in hip-hop, and Biggie and Pop, they're,
basking in the national spotlight.
You can see Sean Combs standing clear as day. He's right center stage in the back. Biggie standing off to his right, your screen left just a little bit. There's a bunch of other guys I can name that you just have to really be into this stuff to know who they are. But, like, all the players of that whole era are in that one clip. And
meanwhile, Jim Carrey's across the stage.
Jim Carrey's back in there. Jamie Foxx is standing there. Like, David Allen Greer's standing there. Like, it's just an amazing little pop culture nugget. But it's so funny because Pac keeps getting on the camera, and they keep pulling it back off Tupac because they just can't help it. They keep putting him on the camera, and nobody knows who he is yet. And within, I think this is about a year before he goes to prison the first time. And then when he got out of course, his album, his big first debut album dropped while he was in prison, and he hit #1 while he's in prison. He gets out, and then we have that 20-month run of death row before he's killed. Like, people forget, you've only got about 3 years of Tupac in the public conscious, really. Like, everything we know about him is in that little 20-month period when he gets at. There's just this little window. Like, that's nothing. That's a tour for a major. Like, if you have a good album, that's one tour is 18 months.
Yep.
If you really hit a good album big. And that's all we have of Tupac really in the social conscious. And think of how massive he was. Like, that's just mind blowing.
It's just a speck in the seas of Ozzy.
I mean, my God,
countless stories.
You want to talk about impact in a short period of time, and we now know, he was putting all that music out because he was trying to get out of his death row deal. He had a 5-album deal, so he was trying to put it out as fast as he could to get out of the deal and go on and do his own stuff. But you look at how good he was at acting. You look at how good he was at, he was doing multi-platform before anybody knew what that really. Can you imagine if he would have lived into the internet area? Because he was so articulate and he was so talented, and he had he could do all the gangster rap stuff, but he had enough of a mind and a business mentality that he knew how to talk to normal people as well that was outside of that, and he could connect to them too. He would have been so huge if he would have made it to the internet era. Of course he did, because he died in Vegas in a fight after a fight and got gunned down, for folks that don't know, and still lived for like 2 weeks. Tough old dude, but yeah.
So
that's one of my favorite YouTube clips, because you're just sitting there like, wait a minute, that's Tupac Shakur doing background dancing, which he started out with Digital Underground. He's a backup dancer for Digital Underground. But there's Tupac Shakur. Wait a minute, there's Pac and Biggie and Puff Daddy's in the background. What the heck's going on this TV show? So it's a cool little nugget from, I think, 92 or 93, somewhere in there.
So before the break, we were talking about foods, and now that we are coming within the striking distance of Christmas, and of course venison.
Yeah.
What are some of y'all's best or worst favorite or least favorite Christmas specific or holiday specific foods?
Eggnog is trash garbage.
Even with alcohol?
Look, you can put alcohol in anything, and it's going to get you drunk. Doesn't mean you should drink it.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, and I'm not going to hate on all fruitcake. But fruitcake, it's like, if you don't do it just right, just don't try it. Same thing with cookies.
But is there
like,
just right that's just right for everyone?
I just ate a cookie a second ago that would send anybody to the dentist. Like, this thing is a brick. I mean, it's terrible. Like, so I'm okay with cookies and fruitcake as long as they're made right. Like, some fruitcake, man. Ugh.
But what is right?
Right? Well, number one,
is it a cake?
Can't be charred up and crisped up and just
charred.
Because some people make that thing. Yeah, it's like a brick. You could build a house out of that thing.
You're supposed to eat this?
Oh, yeah. Fruitcake. Like, I used to hate on fruitcake, but that's because I had never tried good fruitcake. Like, once you actually try some decent fruitcake, it's
but
like,
is it supposed to be a cake, or is cake a misnomer?
It's not really a cake. It's almost like it was shaped like a meatloaf, practically. I mean, they bake it up. It's got a bunch of fruit.
So it's like a vegan meatloaf?
Kind of, yeah.
An orangutan meatloaf.
It's supposed to be sweet, but at the same time, it's not supposed to be a brick, man. I've had a whole bunch of bricks. People joke around about fruitcakes, how you could crack a window with it like it's a porcelain, bowl.
So you could carve it out and serve soup in it.
Yeah, but you can't go wrong with just chocolate chip cookies. Just the cookies.
Cookies are always good.
Yeah.
Cookies are always good. As long as they're nice.
The decorations on them can be questionable at times, but...
I mean, you don't even have to cook them for me. I just eat the dough.
Right.
Like, I mean, I don't care. I'm shameless when it comes to cookie dough.
Oh. Sorry, this went back to the music. Miss Allen. Tupac, I can't think of one song he did. Only rap I recognize is the Beastie Boys, and Will Smith. Generation gap, big time.
Here's your generation gap. Do you know how the Beastie Boys got their big break?
Crashing an airline into a rocky mountain for a photograph of the first album?
No, that was John Denver. I'm sorry, too soon?
No.
Too soon?
Never on the Big Talker.
They were the opening act on Madonna's Like a Virgin tour. Seriously, imagine that bill in whatever 84, 85, whatever year that was. Like, imagine going to that concert for Madonna and you get the Beastie Boys for 25 minutes. Like, what? But they were the opening act on the Like a Virgin tour. Go look it up. That happened.
Oh, that's uglier than I can imagine.
Now, Will Smith, like, I will say, his rap game was strong. Like, people hate on his rap game. I thought it was pretty good for a celebrity.
I love in the Miami song when he dropped the lyric of try to write a rap verse without one curse word in it.
Right.
Like, okay, that's pretty self-aware.
There's a dropped mic right there. And they're always fun. Like, Young MC did that as well. But the thing is, apparently you need to be all, culturally appropriate for your rap to succeed.
I mean, Will Smith deserves credit for Wild Wild West. Like...
Yeah, that was fun.
He deserves every bit of acrimony he got for Wild Wild West. That was terrible. That was
But
bad.
he made a rap song
Let me defend Will Smith for just a second, though. Look, this is all subjective because rap's just like any other form of music. People like certain styles over certain, so this is all subjective. But there's always been a thing in rap and your delivery and your flow and how you say and enunciate things. And I just, like, me personally, I don't like this current trend of mumble rap. Looking at you, Drake, I don't like mumble rap and I don't like auto-tuned rap. I don't like it at all. I don't like this. It's just not pleasant for me to listen to. So if you came down to it, yeah, I know Will Smith's kind of, it's, I get it. It's the Toyota Corolla, the beige Toyota Corolla of rap music. He's not doing anything innovative here, but, it gets the job done, and I at least know what it is, and I can listen to it, and I can bop my head to it. I don't like mumble rap, and I don't like auto-tuned rap. I just don't like that stuff. I know it's big. I know, whatever. Call me whatever you want to. But, when you had old school rap and then you grew up in the 90s like I did, and you had, the East Coast, West Coast, and you had a whole lot of high level all-timers on the scene at the time. I don't need
back
mumble
when they would
rap.
tell a
I just don't like
story.
it.
Yeah, when they tell a story, like, it was a lot funner.
Yeah.
Then it just got to the point where they just talk about how much money they got. And they talk about how you're such a sucker for buying their music. And it's like...
And the word choice, I think, is questionable.
Oh, yeah.
There's...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's 180,000 words in the English language.
But that's the thing is, you could tell Tupac was a reader.
Yeah.
Like, that dude read stuff, and you could tell because
what
it
else
would come
is there
out
to
in
do
the
in
way he
prison?
considered stuff. You could listen to Biggie Smalls, and you could tell that he thought through things. Like, he didn't just walk up to the mic and start talking about his money. He thought through it. So when he opens up with "It was all a dream," and then he presents, I'm on the magazine covers and I'm rich and the champagne, and then he flips it back to talking about how he grew up poor and he dealt drugs to try to get money for his kid and stuff. Now it's framed. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Because he thought it through and he framed it like it was all a dream, and probably one of the great openings to a rap track ever, and he lays it all out. You can tell he thought about it and he put some consideration into it. Plus, it's real. Like, that's his actual real life. Real always. That's the thing with all this stuff. Real always wins out. And if you're just presenting, whether it's rock music or classical music or whatever, if you're just playing a character, eventually it's going to catch up in your art. If you take your art now,
and the fans are going to pay for it too, meaning that their crash is going to happen trying to emulate these fans.
It's going to happen faster than yours does.
Right.
But you should have a persona. Like, you're on stage as you at 11 instead of on the 6 you are when you're at dinner with your family or whatever.
Right.
I'm not talking about that part of it. There's so many of those guys that they're just. And rock music has the same problem. Pop music has always had this problem. There's a lot of copycat to it, and it becomes just this wall of noise of sameness. And hip hop has a real problem with that. And it comes in stages because, you have something innovative and then everybody copies it, and then it's innovative and then everybody copies it. And same with rock, same with country, same with everything else. You have an innovator and then everybody copies it, and then it all sounds the same for a while. And we're just in one of those lulls right now. There's really interesting stuff out there, but I don't think that happens as much now because I think this is something that streaming has actually helped with. Because now everybody can go find what they want. They're not force-fed radio and they're not force-fed MTV. So I don't think we're going to have as much of that going forward because now people can kind of get it a la carte.
I'm thinking more.
I don't know. If there were a massive rap fest where they get all the best rappers that were ever around and they put them in a room and they say, hey, you guys are going to spit fire at each other and we're going to see who wins in this rap battle, I would put my money on T.I. I would put my money on T.I. every time. Like, I wouldn't put my money on anybody else. Like, there some other good rappers, like Lil Wayne. Like, Lil Wayne, the stuff he did, and this guy was rolling in money before he even started on the Carter 2 or 3. Like, I mean, he could just, and he kind of branched into the mumble rap, like when in the Scissor days when, he was on the Robitussin and all that,
He's another one of those guys, though. He could collect talent and mentor talent like crazy. Like, look at all the people that came up underneath him.
Well,
he was like Ozzy. He's like Ozzy in the rap world. Like, he's hooked up on all these drugs. They roll him up there, and then he just goes nuts on the microphone. They put him back in the chair and wheel him back on the tour bus.
Right.
But I mean, seriously though, let's take your hypothetical here. Let's have, go get the people that are on the radio with mumble rap, auto tune rap. Okay, I'm gonna roll up with Tech Nine. Good luck. he ain't gonna mumble at you. He's gonna rip your soul out through the nose and hold it up and go through a point by point and then put it back when he's done. You're screwed. There's so many guys out there that can really, really do the art form. And the folk, and again, this isn't just rap. Rock has this, country has. You have musicians, TK, a bunch of them. They're studio creations. Like they can manufacture it, but they can't organically do it. And when you put people on and that's really the heart of the hip hop.
Oh yeah, when the guy from Pantera
you just give a guy a mic, give a guy a mic on the stage, you find out real quick who can do it and who can't.
Oh yeah.
You're going to find out.
Live is there is no hiding from live. That's why I like recording live events. Because that's the real organic in the moment situation, and if you screw up and how you handle it or whatever.
And there's the do you walk the walk thing. And when T.I. sings about guns and raps about guns and stuff, like he lives that life. Like his words are true. Like, I mean, the guy got busted with all those guns. When he speaks of God, the guy, he's always revered God, I mean, when somebody walks the way that they talk, that's where it's
okay. So your mom brings up an interesting point in the statement she just dropped.
We've got to find another way to intro that other than just going your mom. We've got to figure
It's the Dustin's mom segment.
Yeah, you can ignore her. Feel free to ignore her at any time.
Her point is one that I would kind of roll with is,
she's going to end badly someday. I just feel it coming, and I can't. It's
she's going to look up and find that call-in number. It's going to be awesome.
She's going to call in one day, and I'm going to feel like George Costanza.
Oh, my God. So, Dolly Parton rocks. She is the queen of Tennessee, total class act, and such a great role model for young girls.
No question. One of the great Americans of all time.
Oh, yeah. And from her humble that's literally humble upbringings. Right? I mean, that's starting out with, your talent was literally everything that it wasn't like today where you only have to do one thing.
Yeah, one of my favorite things on Twitter sometimes is they'll do this, like, name an unsung hero, I always say Carl Thomas Dean is the greatest American that's ever lived, and people are like, who? But Carl Thomas Dean is the greatest American to ever live. Do you know who Carl Thomas Dean is?
I recognize the name, but I think I've confused him with somebody else.
He's been married to Dolly Parton for 53 years now.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Dave Thomas. I'm sorry.
No, Dave's up there too. He's a good dude, but Carl Dean. Do you know how strong your game is to hold down Dolly Parton for 53 years, and your game is so strong that you don't even have to...
Especially with Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers waiting around the wings every time. I mean, they're singing songs about Christmas to remember and everything. It's like you're standing by your woman.
The dude just handles his business. He kept his, he kept the love of his life on lock through all of that. Like tell me somebody more legendary. And she put on her social media for his birthday. He's in a chair to his back because his face is hidden because he's legendarily private. He ran a paving and contracting business for. Here's a dude who kept running his small business while his wife's one of the richest stars in the world. He's like, nah, I'm busy. I got work to do. I'm telling you, I love this dude. And you can't find any pictures of this guy since, other than like snarky stuff that the tabloids catch from like the 50s on, because he's just like, you go be famous. We're going to have us over here on the side.
Yeah, when you get back from tour, I'm going to add a porch to the back.
Well, and then you go to Tennessee and you find out that Dolly Parton, like, she is a hero to the community. And,
God, yeah.
All the money she's helping them.
She, like, personally rebuilt the town.
Yeah.
But go look. A couple months ago, he had his birthday, and he had Dolly Parton in the Playboy bunny outfit delivering his cake to his easy chair, and he's just sitting in his easy chair with Dolly Parton bringing his birthday cake and a dollar. I don't care if she's in her 70s. I'm like, that dude.
You will never be that cool.
Is a legend. You will never be as cool as Carl Thomas Dean, well into his 70s, and Dolly Parton is wearing the Playboy bunny outfit to bring you your birthday cake.
That's
you will never be that cool no matter what you do in life. That's the bar.
That's it. That's it. You can fly to space if you want, but you'll never be that cool.
You will never be Johnny Cash eating a cake in a hedge high cool. If
Yep.
you've never seen that photo.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's just certain things.
I
you
get
will
that one a lot,
You will
by the
never
way.
be kissing the girl on VJ Day in Times Square. You'll never
Right.
be that cool.
Yep.
You know. Anyway. Fellas, I gotta go. I gotta hit a thing up, but it's always
Dude,
fun
thank
being
you
with
so much for being here.
Great show today. If people
Good to
didn't
talk
catch
to
it, it will be out there. So talk a little CRT. We talk about that Peter McCullough, Joe Rogan interview. Talk a little Massachusetts politics.
Oh,
Monday
yeah.
morning, don't miss the show in Carpenter's Back. We're going to talk about the machinations of the Supreme Court and abortion. Ought to be fun, along with
Ooh,
other topics. So if you
that
haven't
one's going to
subscribed yet,
be
do
a
it on
real
Bucket.
slippery slope.
That's a spicy meatball.
That's got to be
Well,
rough.
well, we just stick to the legal stuff. Like, people don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an abortion case, air quotes abortion case, but this goes along some pretty well defined. It's like a freight train. It's big and bad and strong, but it's going to go down this track in this direction, and we already know it. So,
Ladies and gentlemen,
oh God, really? Now we're doing it both ends.
the torture never stops. For Andrew Donaldson
I hate
of theordinary-times.com, the author, director, producer, and host of Heard Tell Radio, which is at 6 a.m. and 3 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. And the smartest guest that we have on a consistent basis here
We
at
need
the
to get some
asylum.
more guests. Phone lines open.
You're my pipeline to smart people, because who you have on Heard Tell is like the strata of these
Yeah, and the
industries.
long-form Hertel podcast will be dropping later today. We're talking CRT with Sophia Sidegren and Booker. Deep dive into CRT. You don't want to miss it.
Wow. All right. And that's on the Apple. You can get that.
Yep. If you're subscribed to the weekday Hertel Radio, you're going to get it automatically. You get them 2 for the price of 1, and it only costs you a click. So good stuff.
Nice. Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
it. I'm done. All right. I appreciate you guys.
See ya.
Take care, fellas.
Take care.
Take care.
Yeah, I guess that song does get a little old. I'm going to have to load up another one. But it's fun. I mean, again, since I don't know what I'm doing, I can do what I want, because I'm not doing anything wrong unless
He'll
I'm...
be whistling that song all day.
he's gonna feel like he's gonna feel like Rocky running up the steps of the Capitol, or in the first movie. Remember when he's training and he runs up the steps and he turns around and throws it? Or no, he's in Philly when he does that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
That movie was like, for me, 1,000 years ago. So the fact that I can remember, I mean, I had the actor confused, so that'll tell you something.
Well, I mean, you look at Stallone, man. He's still around. I mean, the guy's in shape. It's like he does that stuff every day in real life. I mean,
Right.
I don't see how people that get that old stay in that good a shape.
Well, I think just having that kind of music playing in the background when Andrew's, being introduced just sort of pumps him up, gets him into that, girly man kind of vibe. I tell you what, folks, I need to refresh my drink. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back after this one. I think I'll take this one. How's that?
Send them in with the piano.
Yeah, you guys seem to like the hip-hop stuff, so I'm going to go with that, and we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A Brunswick County man is charged with extortion after making threats to the Ocean Isle Beach police chief and the Brunswick County sheriff. According to warrants, John Nathan Tabor allegedly threatened 2 men to give him immunity or he would release false information. The threats reportedly happened to Ocean Isle Beach Police Chief Ken Bellamy from November 10th through Tuesday. The warrant also says Brunswick County Sheriff John Ingram was also threatened on Tuesday. Tabor has been arrested and is being held in the Brunswick County Jail. The Temple of Israel is one of the most recognizable buildings in downtown Wilmington, and it needs your help. The synagogue has stood for a century and a half and needs $500,000 for its restoration. The building needs repairs due to water damage and deterioration. The temple is the oldest Jewish house of worship in continuous use in the state, but it has been closed for worship and other events since last year. Fundraising began 2 months ago. So far, $200,000 have been donated or pledged towards the $500,000 goal. According to a new report, North Carolina is among 10 states in the country seeing the highest jump in rental rates. Rent.com is reporting the average rent for one bedroom in North Carolina is $1,378. That's up nearly 22% from last year. The increase is 3 times the national rate of inflation, which is at a near 40-year high. Some North Carolina realtors are recommending buying rather than renting since interest rates remain low. And today is Wright Brothers Day, which celebrates 118 years since the two brothers made history with their airplane at Kitty Hawk. In 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright launched that first flight from a sand dune covering 120 feet in 12 seconds. The country has been marking the day officially since 1963. President Joe Biden has proclaimed today Wright Brothers Day. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Helen Holt with your WWAY Storm Track 3 AccuWeather forecast. We'll see a mixture of sunshine and cloudiness today, unseasonably warm again with high temperatures in the mid to upper 70s inland with lower 70s along the beaches. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy skies, mild low temperatures in the upper 50s to near 60. Saturday, partly sunny and unseasonably warm, highs in the upper 70s inland to the low 70s along the Atlantic coastline. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
If you want to talk about culture and politics without all the caterwauling, then you'll love Hertel Radio with me, your host, Andrew Donaldson, every weekday morning, 6 a.m. with a replay at 3 p.m. right here on the Big Talker. Catch it on the Listen Live tab on the app or watch on the Facebook page.
Yeah, you know that place.
Dude, I had to get carried out of the infield one year. Oh, wait, sorry. It seems that we're live, and this time it worked when I said, what up, never mind. That was supposed to be an off-air conversation, and, well, apparently, this time the computer programming worked and took a hot mic, and here we are. As I'm sitting here nibbling on my shoe. But that's the way it rolls. And,
your donations.
And, of course, we have, better content requires a better budget, and better budget requires people buying the stackable washer and dryer by Frigidaire that is currently sitting, I don't have a Vanna White to display it for you, but it is currently sitting in my garage. It's from a remodel. It's in excellent condition. Frigidaire stackable washer dryer.
And
Whatever
for
donation.
free, we will throw in our autographs onto this washer machine.
And we have your choice of colors for said signature.
Yeah.
From the
outside
asylum.
Blue,
right.
green,
And anytime you meet someone
red.
famous and they come in and they say, hey, can you autograph my stackable washer dryer by Frigidaire that I purchased from the Big Talker online? That'd be awesome, I think. And I still think, and I'm trying to get the kids to approve some I help save the Big Talker online T-shirts. Because I think that'd be
like a wildlife foundation or something.
Right. You buy a T-shirt, you feel better, you help out the station, and you get some, something to wear when you're working on the car and need to not worry about getting oil and stuff on you.
I've got plenty of those shirts. I have a collection of those shirts. I'm sure a lot of people do.
Well,
everything from blood drives to hurricane relief to, hey,
right.
I help with this. I
So
help
maybe
with
you need to
that.
get 2 or 3 because you're going to tear them up, right? So
Yeah, you
stock
want
up.
one to kind of keep in the back of the closet just to kind of show, like, hey,
Yeah,
later on.
that's the one. That's the one you wear to the weekend neighborhood swim party. You're right, the neighborhood barbecue or whatever. I mean, I saw it on a commercial once, so I thought, I guess it's real, where, you know, everybody gets together in the neighborhood around somebody's pool and they cook food and talk about the wonders of A1 steak sauce or something.
Yeah, it'd be cool to have that shirt saying, hey, I saved Big Talker, and everybody be like, oh, so you're the reason we have to listen to those guys in the morning. Oh, okay. Hey, how do you like your burger? Eh? With some grass on it?
It was made with propane.
And propane accessories. Yeah, speaking of donations, though, I know there's a lot of people here in North Carolina and a lot of groups in North Carolina that are sending a lot of relief efforts to help in Kentucky with the tornado that happened. Like, apparently, like, the city of Mayfield out there was, quote, turned into rubble.
Damn.
And but we're sending units. I know every time we have a hurricane here, people come and help us. I mean, we get lines.
Oh, yeah, you can see a line of trucks coming in, especially
the Cajun
electrical
Navy
guys.
came in.
Right.
You know, and I have some words about the Cajun Navy, but their intentions were good and they came to help. But it's good to see that we're able to return that favor when somebody else needs us.
Right.
Like, I remember after Katrina, North Carolina Baptist men went out there. A lot of people went out there. And, you know, we kind of needed that help when it came to Florence and the rebuild effort. And 60 people have passed away out there. I think the numbers might even still be going up. I mean, the whole place has turned into rubble.
You know, it's kind of surprise overnight, come get you kind of thing. There wasn't a whole lot of, you know, hey, everybody duck.
Well, for hurricanes, we're kind of given like a couple. Sometimes,
oh yeah, we have enough time to create. We have enough time to create a meme army.
Oh yeah. Everybody is already pretty much joking around like we survived it before the thing even hits. I mean, Jim Cantori's over here hanging out at hotels for days on end, just like, I'm telling you guys, it's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming.
When the first body drops, y'all need to get rolling. That's what we're here for. Selling cars and carpets.
But you spend a lot of time out in Kentucky. You know people out there. I know people out there in Boulder.
Oh, I've seen it happen, man.
Yeah, so I mean, now that we've checked on some of the people we know they're safe, it's like now comes, you know, to help the people we don't know.
Oh
like,
yeah, they're
everybody
like
was kind of going on Facebook.
So a lot of people trip when, you know, we're looking at the number of people that are no longer with us as a result. But there's a lot of other things that are lost. Certainly a lot of history, a lot of pets, a lot of, you know, cherishable and treasured, irreplaceable bits of lives, you know. So the devastation that they're digging through right now is one of the most painful experiences ever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you survive with your life, but
right,
you lose everything else, you know. And you talk about history, like, yeah, Bowling Green, they have the Corvette Museum out there.
Or they
like,
did.
I still haven't even looked in to see if that place was damaged. I remember going there. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they have not had the best of luck in that location. I'm just saying.
They really haven't. But I'm proud to say that the North Carolina Baptist men, they've already deployed some people up there to help with the disaster relief. They're accepting donations and everything. To make a donation, you can just go on baptistonamission.org, and they have the volunteer button where you could get set up with a group to go out there, and then they have a donate button where you could donate. And the Baptist men, they have a laundry unit, they have feeding unit. I know a lot of people here in Wilmington after Florence and surrounding areas.
You don't want me on the feeding unit.
Yeah, you go up there and they got the people with the yellow shirts and the yellow hats, and they'll serve you up a plate, and they just keep the line going. I mean, the Baptist men, they put boots on the ground, and they don't need a lot of government funding.
Just imagine if we took the entire homeless army and sent them to that. They'd be able to eat, they'd be able to help.
Keep running. for homeless. I mean, they're still helping people from Florence.
No. What I'm saying is, like, if they were to take, like, the homeless population of Wilmington, Durham, and Vietnam and took them all to Kentucky to help out, they all get fed, they all have a place to sleep, and they all have something positive to do as an impact, right? I mean, it's a triple win right there. I don't see why they're not just, netting these guys.
See, you're right.
Like Spider-Man, just go to the homeless camps, right, and just start abducting these guys and and taking them out to Kentucky and saying, all right, here's your food, here's your coffee, here's what we're trying to do.
Well, it's kind of like the people who give them the money. Everybody, no matter how low they are, you give them the opportunity to do something good with purpose. A lot of times there are people waiting for that opportunity, and you go.
Because they don't know how to make it themselves, right?
Yeah, they don't know. I mean, granted, there are some people that are going to be like, no, I only care about myself. I mean, they're straight up greedy, and those people are just bums. But some people, I mean, you go to them like, hey, I know you're not up to anything right now. Some people really need help.
Are you busy?
Hey, you got a minute?
That cardboard sign weighing you down? Here, I got something for you.
Yeah, I saw you pooping over there by the dumpster, You want to use a bathroom? Here's a way to get a porta potty. There's a bunch of guys over here that are getting ready to go do and put some tarps on some roofs. I mean, just something simple like that.
Right.
I mean, you give them the opportunity to help, and they'll jump to it. I mean, any regular person or good moral person, when they're given an opportunity to help some people and they have free time, they're probably going to take it. They just don't know how to go about it. And they're afraid, like, oh, if I go with them, like, am I going to be expected? Is too much going to be expected of me?
When every little bit helps.
Yeah, that's why the Baptist men, the Cajun Navy, I mean, Samaritan's Purse, they've been mobilizing. They sent volunteers out there as well. The Western Kentucky Red Cross, I mean, they've already got reinforced by the North Carolina Red Cross. I mean, they were mobilizing, going out there. So we've sent our Red Cross out there. I mean, and there's also been a band of other private contractors that have gone out there on their own just to kind of help out and stuff. Some of them have family out there. But the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear, has officially authorized the Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund. And the donations can be made online, and they are tax deductible. So if you don't want to give to a certain cause or certain group, you could donate directly to the state for the relief fund. So
that's going to make people comfortable.
So you could give it to the government, or you could
go straight to the right.
You could give it to the Red Cross. I mean, there's all types of people that are all ready to move in, and they've been working. Apparently, they dispatched units over there days ago. They've been out there for a while. I mean, it's really, like I said, it's really good to see that we go and help and kind of pay it forward, because I know there were some people up north that came down here, when we needed them.
Well, I know you're not old enough to remember this,
or
but
over here.
There was a guy on TV when I was a kid named Fred Rogers. And he was interviewed. I cannot remember who was doing the interview. I think it was an English guy, but I can't be quoted on that. But he was asked about, explaining disasters to children. And his response was, when he had experienced a traumatic event when he was a child, his mom had turned to him and said, look a little closer. Look for the people, that are coming out to help. Because they're there. Those are the people that we want to be, right? If we are to aspire to be better people, we can see the better in people, I think. That's just,
you're right. I mean,
it's a weird concept to look at, but there's a lot of self-help books and a lot of self-help podcasts, et cetera, but a lot of it boils down to, when you see somebody behaving in a way that you feel is an improvement on your own, you can kind of emulate that and start to understand it for yourself. And the next thing you know, and that opportunity, as you were pointing out, is not necessarily as accessible inherently to some people. So yeah, maybe if we grab up some of these guys and say, look, man, we can take care of you for 3 weeks if you don't mind helping dig some people who have it way worse than you do.
I mean, look at California's wildfires, right? You could run around and you could find all types of people, just average Joes, that would find it tempting to drop what they're doing and go out there and fight wildfires. I mean, it's a dangerous job, but there are some people they want to go and help like that. But instead, they're sending out people and inmates and stuff. And that's where I find it questionable in, say, California with the wildfires, where they send the inmates out there to send inmates out there to do that. Like, you're giving them an easy opportunity to really correct things. And that's kind of good. Like, a lot of them, they need that. And that's a way for them to see, like, hey, when I get out of here, I could stay doing this, man. You know, and I hope they offer that to them. Like, hey, if you work with us through while you're incarcerated, when you get out, like, you will have a job here with us. Since you're already familiar with it, heck, you know the guys that work here.
You already know the procedures. We trained you on the safety and stuff. Why would we throw away that investment?
But it's sad to see that there's not enough regular citizens to step forward. I mean, you hear about them, they say that nobody wants to volunteer. Instead, they all come over here.
But they're going to be the first one in line to talk to the manager about their samples.
Yeah. I mean, you got so many people doing that. And you look here, comparatively, over here, where it's like everybody in the state kind of comes forward and tries to help. You got all these organizations, the small businesses hop in. You know, yeah, they take a major hit, but they help the community. And you got, and if we can't carry all the weight, somebody will come up from South Carolina. People will come from Louisiana. Like Louisiana, ever since Katrina, Louisiana, they show up for everything, because everybody showed up there to help with Katrina. I remember when I went down there, Harry Connick Jr. was around there around the same time. And I remember because he was from New Orleans and everything. And we went over there to New Orleans for a day or two to help out and kind of check out things in a brief period. And because we were pretty much at Gulfport, Mississippi. That's where they sent us after Katrina. And there was a lot of damage over there. Like Louisiana, they got the blunt of it. But then again, Louisiana also got a lot of help. So whenever something bad happens, the Cajun Navy rolls over here. I remember the last with Florence, they didn't want the Cajun Navy here. Cooper was saying, "Oh, no, I don't know if we need them. I don't know if we need them," and they showed up anyways. Now, I got personal stories about and personal bias with the Cajun Navy. You know, they showed up, they helped. It was good intentions, and they did stuff that a lot of the people here wouldn't do to help us out.
Right.
But at the same time, I did know some of them. I mean, there's an instance where they desecrated a church. I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna go into that. And that was a select few of them.
I will add that much of this will boil down to a phrase of "it shouldn't have to happen to you for it to matter to you," and we lost that sense of connection to the wider humanity, where now we have cell phones to sort of document the tragedy as it happens, whereas people, as Andrew was relating to 9/11, where entire troops, hardened battle troops, were reduced to tears seeing the events of 9/11 unfold. Right? We've lost that connection to the, these numbers. 60 dead. Well, that's 60 people, but there's going to be 120 families, right? Mother, father. You do that again with the children, so that's 180. That's 200 people, maybe 150 people affected by each one.
Yeah, even though it's 60 people, each person. I mean, think of each person. They got friends, they got family. Yeah, and it's going to hit that place for a long time.
Yeah, it's going to leave a scar in their cultural history, memory that's going to be hard to erase. And and to me, it's sort of a bittersweet heartbreak to see memorials at times, because what you're memorializing was tragic, and the monument or memorial, as heartfelt as it is still such a grain of sand in the overall story. Does that make sense?
It does.
Where
It does.
it kind of makes you. It does because.
I mean, there are people in Congress right now who have tried to negate and belittle 9/11, and it's like here it is. This incident took 60 lives. I mean, look at all the lives we lost that day. I mean, we can't belittle these instances. I mean, even if this tornado killed 10 people, it still doesn't change the fact that it's a tragic incident, and it has deeply affected the community. Now, I mean, people could argue, like, well, what type of relief did they need from other states? And we could go into specifics, about, like, cost and benefit and all that stuff. But in the end, what the people need is direct help.
Right. When you have to float a boat down the street to rescue people from their second floor rooftops, that's, stop talking, start paddling.
And I remember when they do that. They would stage at the churches. They staged at the church right down the road down here. A very, very good church. It's been really good for the community. And they opened the doors to the Cajun Navy to set up their base of operations down here. And all throughout the night, they'd be running boats. And locals, what they don't really tell you, I mean, they make it seem like the Cajun Navy comes in and they get no local support. No, the locals pretty much, they pick up the radio channels. And you got oyster fishermen. You got fishermen, private
Anybody
charter
with a boat.
guys, and you got hunters with john boats. They got a radio, they got a boat. They're helping people, and we have technology so good where we could see this hurricane coming to where they already knew where to position some of the boats. They were checking elevation and stuff prior to the hurricane even arriving. But then again, sometimes when people come to help, and this is the whole thing about volunteers with me, sometimes when people come to help and they think they're not getting paid, they think that gives them an excuse to do other things or to not take it as serious.
That would be the coin.
And that's one of the things that always got me, because I remember so many volunteers would show up and they say, well, I'm not working here, I'm not getting paid, but you're here to help.
And it doesn't help if you're throwing your crap on the ground thinking somebody else is going to pick it up. That means that volunteer has to do your work, has to clean up after you instead of cleaning up after the hurricane.
Yeah, and pretty much essentially that's what happened with this church. I remember I was doing security at this place. After the hurricanes, I used to always help Baptist men. But then it got to the point where crime kind of got really bad. I started doing security for places. I'd do security for shelters and stuff, a lot of times voluntarily. Except for when the Red Cross came along and they paid very well, but I was going to help anyways, so that's my moral conundrum right there. But anyways, when I was helping the church, the Cajun Navy was good, but they came here and they already defied the governor. Governor said for them not to come. So they're already looking at like, we're breaking the rules. We don't need that. We're here to help and we're going to help anyways. So they already had that attitude like, hey, we're here to save the day. Look out and let the white knights come through,
Right.
And that's fine and all. Hey, you take it seriously. You got motivation. You're a go-getter. But, then you drink a bunch of beer in the parking lot and leave all the beer cans around the church. And, you use it like a hangout spot. I mean, you got a bunch of Marlboro men hanging around the church. So it's like, hey, we're helping. Okay, but
right.
You break glass where the kids like to play,
This is the human race undefeated. So, but the thing, and like with the Boy Scouts, who do you go after?
Yeah, but the Boy Scouts, they were taught to serve. They'd help the community. I remember being a Boy Scout after the hurricanes, and you go around, you clean up people's yards.
Right, but if there are bad actors within the organization, do you go after the organization or do you go after the bad actors?
You should go after the bad actors.
Well, would this not play true with some of the other events post-hurricane? Because, and the thing is, it's people being people. Some of these guys are definitely of the mindset is like, I'm here to do this particular thing and everything else in my way is just a destructive path. Almost like, that would be my fear of bringing homeless people in, is that they'd be grateful for the food and doing stuff, but they would be as much of a wreck and a problem as they are a help.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's where you got people with substance abuse issues. And mental illness is
and
the
like
big
with
thing.
with the fires
Like,
that you mentioned, at least there was a screening. There's obviously a proven screening process, right? Because if you're going into
See, and
the
I
can,
don't know that about the Cajun Navy. I don't know how their screening.
No, I'm just
process
saying in
is.
concept, right? If you're gonna do straight up volunteer work, certainly including people from the homeless community looking for free food, that there would be a proven screening process
Well, that's
that
one
we
of the
could
things
adapt.
I realized about Red Cross, because Red Cross had so many volunteers, they was stepping on each other's feet. Everybody wanted to be like the bellwether of good news, and like they
The
watch
hero
the
of the day,
commercials,
right?
and they see people talking to the families and stuff, but nobody wanted to carry the boxes. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm sitting in there and like I'm hired to do security. Okay, everybody's they're being pretty for the camera. They're smiling and stuff, but like I hate to say it, they need the mules. They need the guys behind the scenes
They
too.
need boots.
There were a couple guys that were going to medical school, right? And they were from Berkeley, California. They
Oh,
came
man.
all the way out here after Katrina.
Where's
and
the
were working for
granola?
the Red Cross.
Where's the granola?
Oh no, they were real cool, man. But they were sitting here multitasking. So these guys come from California. They're multitasking. They're giving everybody their medicine and insulin, and I'm watching over the medical tent because they don't want anybody stealing the prescription medication.
Right.
So because everybody, when you stay at the shelter, you turn in your prescriptions to the prescription tent. That way they could watch them and stuff. That way you're not selling your
And you're not going to
prescription
get robbed at your bunk.
Yeah, exactly. It's for your safety. You turned it in. That's one of the conditions. So these guys were responsible for all that, and then they got pulled into loading. Next thing you know, they're trying to get talked into going to other sites, and I'm going to watch over the medical. It's like you can't. You need some of these other volunteers to step forward, and a lot of them did. I'm not trying to slander. They have great volunteers, but there were a couple of them that just if you want to help, you could help, but take the vest off.
And you can do it from your armchair, or you can do it from boots on the ground and everything in between. But we've hit 10 o'clock, and I think, I think it's this one.
Time to go.
Yep. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Big Talker Online.
God bless you all. Have a great weekend.
And please, somebody come and get this Frigidaire stackable washer dryer out of my garage and help out the Big Talker Online. Thanks for your time. We'll see you next week. Wrong button. Dude, I just lost my mouse. We're like stuck on air.
Government has become too big, too overtaxing, and is constantly overregulating every aspect of your life.
If you agree with that, tune into Consumer Choice Radio every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM with me, Yael Osowski.
And me, David Clement. For an hour, you'll get expert analysis on what the government is sinking its teeth into next and how you, as a consumer, can push back.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This is Radio Free Dixie. Let's talk about Confederate diversity. Yes, Confederate. The Northern victors in the War for Southern Independence don't want you to know that thousands of African American Southerners served in the Confederate military. President Jefferson Davis was so impressed with their service that he recommended to the Confederate Congress that they